Would like to call to order the July 16th, 2024 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners regular meeting. Welcome, everyone. If you would stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence for our invocation tonight. Thank you. Okay, first up is the approval of the agenda. Commissioners, you all have a copy of the agenda before you. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting agenda, including the changes on page 4?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the agenda, including the changes, and I would also like to add in that motion to pull items 12, 13, and 14 from our consent agenda and add those to new business.
Okay, Commissioners, you've heard the motion. Do I hear a second to that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we will move E, 12, 13, and 14 will now be F, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, first up under recognitions and presentations from Emergency Medical Services, a Heart Safe Workplace Award, and we're happy to have Tyler Cope with us tonight for that presentation. Welcome, sir.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. I'm John Bradley. I'm the Risk and Safety Director for the county, and I'm just going to introduce everybody here. This is an award for the race cars trial, which is the randomized cluster evaluation of cardiac arrest systems. And we have Tyler Cope, who's one of the heads of this organization that we've been working with. He's with Duke University. They have collaborated with the Cabarrus County Firefighters Association, who we have Chief Gandy here from that association, as well as two of our Cabarrus County employees, Ashley Enos and Matthew Ford. And this is an award recognizing us utilizing AEDs throughout the workplace, as well as CPR training throughout our facilities. We were the first ones to apply for this award, and we're just here to recognize our staff as well as the county, including risk management, EMS, and infrastructure and asset management, who help collaborate and formalize the training as well as taking care of our AED equipment. So now I'll turn it over to Tyler.
Thank you. And I want to give a little bit of a background here on why we're doing what we're doing. So sudden cardiac arrest is the third leading cause of death in the United States, and only 1 in 10 people survive. And that statistic hasn't changed in over 30 years. And for every minute that somebody doesn't receive CPR or rapid defibrillation, then their chance of surviving goes down by 10%. So if you think about the time it takes for fire and law enforcement, our first responders to arrive on the scene anywhere, it's still going to take 5 to 6 minutes. EMS, as fast as they come, still takes a bit longer than that sometimes. And so if you do the math, the way to really save lives is how do we get more of our community trained in hands-only CPR and using AEDs. So as part of our trial, our goal is to work with our partners here in EMS and fire and other hopefully county partners to conduct massive training within our communities, and with the goal of training at least 10% of Cabarrus County in hands-only CPR. And the way that we're looking to do that is through an initiative called the Heart Safe Workplace that's taking place in all 30 counties working with the trial. And as John mentioned, there's 2 very simple requirements that we hope that you all as a county can help promote, and that is any workplace, any place that has employees, if they commit to having a plan in case somebody goes down at their workplace, and that plan should identify where the closest AED is, and if they can commit to training all of their staff in hands-only CPR, that can take, Ashley can say this, 10 to 30 minutes at most. You do not need a certification, and with that, we hope to start awarding workplaces with this kind of incentive to promote training to save lives.
So my name is Ashley, and I am the secretary for the Cabarrus County Firemen's Fund, the Cabarrus County Firefighters Association. And the association is responsible for receiving and approving the applications that come in for a business who would like to become a heart-safe workplace. And so if you are a business owner or you know someone or who is a business owner or a workplace who would like to become a heart-safe workplace, you can reach out to us. You can email us at ccfa.treasurer@gmail.com, or you can visit our Facebook page, which is the Cabarrus County Firefighters Association, for the information and the email address and phone number that you can call to apply for this and get it set up. But at this time, I would like to present Cabarrus County with the plaque for becoming the first one in the county as the Cabarrus County Heart Safe Workplace.
Great. Thank you, and congratulations for that good work, and we hope we'll have lots of other folks in the county that will be able to receive that award as well. Do we have any of our Cabarrus County Career and Leadership Institute graduates with us tonight? We do. If you guys would come forward, we want to recognize you. We just completed our 3rd year of the Cabarrus County Career and Leadership Institute. This is a program from their graduation ceremony just last week. This is a program where we have youth from every high school in the county, as well as some of our other schools, as well as homeschool students that are represented in this program. And the purpose of the program is to introduce the youth of our community to career opportunities that exist here in Cabarrus County, both in private industry as well as in our local governments. The City of Concord has been very heavily involved, along with the county, on this program. I wanted to just briefly, and it won't be real brief because we've got a lot of folks on here, but recognize the companies and businesses and governments in Cabarrus County that supported this program and provided opportunities for for these students. Atrium Health Cabarrus, the Cabarrus Center, Cabarrus County Economic Development Corporation, Cabarrus County EMS, Cabarrus County Government, Cabarrus County Schools, Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office, Capstone Climbing and Adventures, Charlotte Motor Speedway, City of Concord Government, City of Kannapolis Government, the Concord Pageant Regional Airport, Crossroads Church, the GM Technical Center, Hendricks Motorsports, the Kannapolis Cannonballers, Kannapolis City Schools, Eli Lilly Company, Michael Anderson Photography, NASCAR Productions, Rowan Cabarrus Community College Advanced Technology Center, and West Rock Coffee. And so these students had an opportunity to visit all of these businesses and participate in exercises and see what they do. And they are an outstanding group of young people. What we hear back from some of the presentations, they're always very concerned that when they open it up for questions, that it will go silent, and that never, ever happened with this group. Every time they had an opportunity to ask questions and interact, it was very, very lively and active. And so we certainly appreciate their involvement. And I would ask the three of you that are here, and we had about 24, I think, total students in the class, but if you would please introduce yourself, tell us your name and what school you represent, and something about the program that you found particularly enjoyable or educational, or both.
My name is Corey Clark, and I represent Hickory Ridge. And one thing I found about this was it was really informational, how there was a lot of jobs out there that I didn't know about until now.
Great, thank you.
My name is Zoe Floyd. I represent Concord High School, and the environment was very welcoming to me.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Icona, and I represent Central Cabarrus High School. One thing I really liked was seeing how technology and private industries impact our community, and also how our local governments impact a big part of Cabarrus County. That really changed my perspective on Cabarrus County.
Great, thank you. Let's give these students a round of applause. We appreciate you being with us tonight. Next item on the agenda is informal public comments. Before we begin our comments tonight, I wanted to address a couple things. I've received comments and complaints from several people about our recent meetings, mostly regarding the length of time that we were here for about 4 hours last time. But when public comment is an opportunity for citizens to come and speak, we would ask that you not be demonstrative in any way as far as applauding or booing or clapping. Allow folks to have their opportunity to speak and then move on to the next speaker out of respect for everybody's time. If we can't, if people insist on doing that, then we will ask you to leave the meeting. I've consulted, I've gotten remarks back from some of our commissioners as well, that some of the interaction from the audience has made it difficult for them to hear the conversation that's going on. So we ask that you be respectful of other people when they're talking and allow them to have their time at the microphone. I think probably you were told as you came in, we have our public comment session tonight. Then we also have a public hearing. If you wish to speak in public comment, we ask that you fill out one of the yellow cards. If you want to speak in regard to the public hearing, one of the green cards like this, so that we have a record of folks that are speaking. And so we'll start out with our informal public comments, and the first card is from Rich Wise.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Rich Wise. I'm a taxpayer here in Cabarrus County. I'm also a councilman for the town of Millville. After learning about the outcome of July 9th LGC meeting, I did a little research. Essentially, you have been rolling the dice with my money, your money, and every other taxpayer in this county when you use these draw-type loans. This needs to stop. Who buys a house with a 2-year loan and hopes you get a better interest rate 2 years later? This is essentially what you are doing with our tax dollars. What has happened to construction costs? Just like everything else, they continue to rise. What about the variable rate interest rates? They continue to violate and still rise with no end in sight. Last I looked at the variable interest rates on commercial property was over 6%. An ACN building is in a losing proposition every way you look at it. You pay more than it's worth by spending $42 million of our taxpayers' money intend to spend some $20 million to repair and renovate it and tax it off the tax books. Who does that? We are better off paying the $1 million a year in rent for the old Kmart building and make repairs and renovation needs for the next 30 years. $1 million a year for 30 years equals $30 million, not 62. It doesn't take a genius to see the ACM building is nothing but a loser for the taxpayers in this county. I encourage you to stop rolling the dice with our money and bringing in any future building projects or larger funds needs to the voters of this community. Let us decide instead of being behind closed doors all the time. Stop wasting our money. Thank you for your time.
No, sir. Our next card is from Jerry Anderson.
Jerry Anderson, Annapolis, North Carolina. My story remains, y'all took my child and I don't agree with it. Y'all abused my daughter. I went to her grave site, she's been dead 6 years. I think the blood is on this community and this government here in our community. And Mike, I sat up here and asked you, you said you didn't close the doors in one of your meetings, but I always said you closed the doors, why I had to come up here. And I asked you why my daughter was taken, emergency taken on a Saturday. And actually it wasn't an emergency. They come in there with the police and they sat in there and moved her out like a government relative. Regardless of that, the reason you locked your doors is because I kept asking you, why did they take my child? Why did they come on a Saturday and take her and want her homework and all that? It wasn't an emergency taking. They sat in there forever. I got the tape. Regardless of that, I've been coming up here. It happened. It happened. If she was $100,000 missing, y'all get to the bottom of it. But she's a child. I don't know if she paid for that courthouse over there or a picture hanging on the wall. I don't know why my granddaughter was taken. But now, this is a big thing. Mike Downs, is she dead and you don't want to tell me? Is she dead? You don't want to tell me? That would be blood on 2 of my daughters. Taking her out of my house. Is my daughter dead? That's what I'm hearing. And this, you know, if y'all allow me to come up here and talk about my daughter knowing she's dead and not telling me, man, y'all just put me through all kind of hell. Mike Downs, is she dead? You want to tell me? Why does your people over there at DSS get quiet when I ask them why they took my child? The mayor bribed me. Daryl Hennick bribed me and said he'd get the answer. Maybe he found out she was dead too. He's corrupt. You know I've been shot at. You know I've been pulled out of the car and put in handcuffs because of coming up here. I know it's the reason. I've been done dirty. That's my child. My daughter was never married. We're the only family she has. Y'all took her and put her through court, federal. You won't answer me, so I assume that you know she's dead. That's terrible.
Okay, our next card is from Jeter Anderson.
Jeter Anderson, Annapolis. Wow. You know, if you want to make this a legal problem, well, then make it a legal problem. Answer the question of why you took in the child. Otherwise, it's kidnapping, man. And this right here is called exculpatory evidence. And exculpatory evidence is something that should be brought forth in front of a judge. Or, in that case, is basically sham, false, you know, or you put somebody through hell and they got abused or neglected and killed. But this DSS is terrible, needs needs the state to come in, needs an investigation from all the people that's left out of it. It's just constantly turnover, in and out, in and out. There's nobody that stays. They can't answer questions. I call and ask them questions. They can't answer. There's nobody in there qualified to answer a question. How we have that up here? How we have that up here? And locking the doors on people to ask questions is not good. Why is this child taken? Why is this child taken, man? How is it legal that you take a child and not answer? Two agencies don't know. And a lot of tricks that these DSS seem to work there. A lot of tricks. And, man, these tricks ain't for kids. They ain't for kids. They, well, I don't know how I don't know how somebody that does somebody so wrong gets to come back in DSS after just disappearing. That was a trick right there. And then they put fraudulent paperwork in front of you, and then it's gone. That's magic. And then they disappear. That's magic. A lot of tricks, man. And all I can say is that after meeting your wife and Jessica Bridges coming back up here, I guess I could say that you're right back up to your old tricks, and that's got to stop, man. These tricks ain't good to be around kids, to have around kids, and to take them, to steal them, to swindle, and this put a lot of pain. You still got a lot of pain on my family. All you got to do is answer a question. Why'd you take the child? Somebody might need to go to jail. Who went to jail for taking this child? This is exculpatory evidence. This should have been brought up. And why nobody cares? Why nobody cares? They shouldn't care about y'all. Shouldn't care about y'all. Y'all care about this? No. Shouldn't care about y'all. Need to get to the bottom of why exculpatory evidence is being hid by H.J. White. That man is something else. Why the heck would he do this to a mentally ill individual? You know, Steve, you're on the board of mental illness. Why would he do this to somebody? He's a criminal defense lawyer. He's not for the children. He's not for the children.
Okay, our next card is from Laura Blackwell Lindsay.
Laura Blackwell Lindsay, Harrisburg. Good evening. I'm here tonight to talk about bad leadership, failed leadership. I'm here tonight to talk about Chairman Steve Morris and his latest scheme to put us into debt without our consent, to fund his controversial pet projects. Steve Morris has refused to let the voters of this county have a say on hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. Much of the latest debt related to the pet projects, controversial projects, that he is attempting to force into the ground before he leaves office. These projects have significant opposition that Steve and the county staff have ignored. Steve, you've done this because you're scared. You are scared that the voters of this county will vote down your pet projects like they voted you down in March. You are incredibly unpopular locally, and now the state level due to your behavior before the local government commission on Monday. The North Carolina State Treasurer and North Carolina State Auditor, the top two financial officials in this state, urged you in a meeting to your face to use a general obligation bond that requires a vote of the people to determine the level of public support for your latest pet projects that you are trying to rush into the ground. Instead, you tried sleight of hand. You tried to slip the projects into a debt issuance for projects that were already built, and you got caught by the top financial professionals of the state. You were chastised last Monday by the state treasurer, state auditor, and local government commission for this behavior, and we have it all on video. I'm here tonight to tell you that you need to stop, Steve. You were voted out of this office. You have no credibility left to push more debt without our consent. In public comment on March 18th, I urged you to do the right thing by the people of this county and that we would be watching. County staff, stop enabling this type of behavior by an unelected official that is on his way out the door. The county projects that have been built and are already in the ground need to be rolled into a long-term, fixed-rate, limited obligation bond so we can reduce the interest rate for our taxpayers. Regarding the controversial pet projects that have not been built, these must be placed on the ballot for vote for the people to determine public support. We're on to you, Steve. And now the North Carolina Local Government Commission is on to you as well.
Your time is up. I'm
Stop
sorry.
this behavior. We're watching.
Our next card is from Lee Schumann. You do have a note on here that it's for a group. This commission and our rules of procedure do not have provisions for extended time periods for groups. It's something certainly we can discuss. It hasn't been an issue thus far.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lee Schumann. I'm a Concord resident for 25 years. I've had 3 kids in the school system. President of the SOS Association. 7 years ago, we began a pretty small, somewhat nominal ask, which at the time was to keep a neighborhood school open and viable. That was successful in its community because of tons of parent support and community support, which is extremely important in our school systems. And we were told that that was not financially responsible. We kept that school open through the last fight in 2017. A few things have been done to that school, not many. At the time, I made the case that we could spend a little bit of money at these schools. Would it be perfect? Would that school look like our Brown McAllister, the brand new one that just got built? No, it wouldn't. Wouldn't be a perfect situation, but it certainly would be more amenable to the taxpayer if we could spend $5 or $10 million and renovate those schools with the highest priority needs at the time. Steve Morris agreed with me in an email. He said, I can't argue with that logic. The key factor is whether a $5 million investment in Beverly Hills and others would buy us 10 or more years, or would it cost more? If it buys us 8 to 10 years, and that community promises not to complain about deserving a new school, it might be worth the additional locally funded positions in that school to obtain more seats. If the school population declines after 10 years, then we just lock the doors, send the kids elsewhere, and walk away. That seems like what we're doing today. I met with Steve a while back. He's aware of this email. He and I have spoken about it. Bottom line is, for 7 years, I asked, who made the decisions? I was told it was the school board. We've had 3 separate school boards involved. Each time we've gotten school board members to understand what it is that we're trying to do. We're trying to save taxpayer money and keep good schools that are educating our kids operational. Just right now, we could spend money renovating Coltrane Webb and Beverly Hills. It's not a perfect solution, but it would save this county over $20 million right now, like that. And now, given this LGC meeting where it seems as though we're going to have a serious issue with trying to get debt financing, we have got to revisit that. This started 7 years ago, it was about one school. Now it's about being honest, being transparent, and being held accountable to decisions that we're making to the taxpayers. When we engage, all we ask is that you engage back. Thank you.
Okay, our next card is from Chris Cranston.
I called up and was told I would be given 5 minutes by your staff. Are you taking that back?
We do not have a provision in our rules of procedure for extended periods for groups. I'm sorry?
I called today and asked, and I was told I would have 5 minutes.
So I took the time to write up 5 minutes worth of speech. Now, your staff you're not communicating with them. I guess I'll just take my 3 minutes. This is totally typical of you. Totally, it's a clown show. Your staff don't know what the rules are. You don't know what Mr. Meisner's position is. I've been here 10 minutes and I know all your positions. And the rest of us are tired of being in the bent over position by you guys. This is ridiculous. Now we can't even clap or encourage each other. Only the people that you deem fit we can clap for. This is abhorrent. It's ridiculous. We're being treated like children. Like, we want to encourage each other and say, hey, good job. Way to show up to local government and express your feelings. No, Steve Morris can't handle that. I wish I knew who had so much influence over you, because I'd have him call you up and tell you to quit overspending. If all it takes is one person to call you and say, hey, the meeting took too long. Maybe because you were slamming Meisner all meeting and trying to get him to say something for your soundbite or something for some ridiculous reason. But the disingenuous behavior, it's got to go. I mean, this is just another prime example. Me wasting all my time getting all this prepared for you to say, oh, we don't suddenly have this provision, even though your staff and everybody else in this room knows about the provision. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell everybody to go on to the Cabarrus County Citizens Against Tax Hikes on the Facebook group, and I will read my 5 minutes on there. Lynn Shue, Morris, Wortman, you especially don't want to miss it. Please don't miss it, because there's plenty of it in there for you, and I hope you reflect on it when you try to sleep tonight. And I don't even know, just going to sit up here and just kind of go off the cuff until my time's up. I got another minute 30. Let's talk real briefly about you guys and your Republican. The fact that you guys are all Republican in here no. We got Democrats saving us on a state level from Republicans overspending. It's embarrassing. I've got to count on a Democrat to save me from my Republicans. And Wortman, you ran as a Republican and you didn't even make it to the election day without bashing the party. And then you join in with the party and vote lockstep the whole way. What was the point? Why did you leave the party when you just empowered them with everything that the people gave you? You handed it right to those who you claimed you couldn't walk with. It's totally, I know you're probably going to hold out your 2 years. Mr. Shue, I don't know if your health is a priority or Cabarrus County health, but I highly doubt you can do 100% for both at this point. And I would hope that you would find it more reasonable to consider your own health than having to allocate tax dollars. Like, prioritize. Are you really the best man at this point for the job? Mr. Meisner, I really look forward to you being chair, because this tomfoolery and this treatment of the citizens as second class and government's elite. Republicans supposed to be a grassroots party, a party of the people, not bosses and white collars. It's not at all. We have so much focus on corporations coming in that we don't, I call up and say, how many people's homes were foreclosed on? We don't know. We don't keep that record. Not last week, not last year, not the year before. Can't tell me how many families lost their homes due to overtaxation. But we know how many corporations come in and how much we're giving them. You don't know how much earnest money you're spending. Don't know anything about the people.
Okay, that is all the cards that we have for informal public comments. We move now to the consent agenda. You all have a copy of that before you. As we noted before, items 12, 13, and 14 have been pulled off of consent and placed on new business. These are all items that we discussed at our work session 2 weeks ago. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exclusion of items 12, 13, and 14?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We move now to new business. Item F1 from Finance is approval of a resolution for installment financing contract for the 2024 B Draw Program. I would ask Jim Howden, our Finance Director, if he would make a few comments before we open the public hearing.
Good evening, Commissioners. Cabarrus County is looking to finance our approved fiscal year 2025 CIP projects as discussed at the work session and approved in the budget. We're looking to finance $270 million. As part of that process, North Carolina General Statute 168-20 requires us to hold a public hearing before the board approves the resolution, contracts, and all corresponding documentation. So I'd ask the board to hold that public hearing and then approve all corresponding documentation, please.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Howden, commissioners?
I have a few questions before we get into the public comment or public hearing session. And I guess this questions can go for Jim or our county manager, Mike. Could someone please give us an overview? We hear the LGC. We've heard that a couple of times, public comment. I've had folks call me and ask me what the LGC is, which stands for Local Government Commission. So could one of you please give me a synopsis and for the public of what it is? What is their purpose? What are they there for? And how we local governments interact with the LGC? Could we have some information on that?
So the Local Government Commission is a board made up of 9 members. Some are automatically appointed, some are appointed by the, I think some are appointed by the Senate, some are appointed by the House, and then some are appointed by the governor. And their goal is to oversee counties and municipalities, making sure they are running properly.
Okay.
They review our financials every year. They review all financing over a certain dollar amount and over a certain term.
And what is that amount?
Well, depends on what it is, but it's roughly $500,000 and anything over 60 months being financed.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I need
that's
to know the
okay.
answer to that.
That's
I'll
okay.
let you finish.
And yeah, so their job is to make sure that, especially any of the financing, that a county is financing something that is legal to finance, and the way they're trying to do it is legal, and the county has the fortitude and the financials to pay for that debt.
Okay. And so you said counties, cities, towns.
Correct.
Any local municipality must go through the Local Government Commission, the LGC, to get approval for financing debt. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's not for purchasing items if we're paying cash. It's just for financing debt.
Correct.
Okay. And so when was this created? Do you recall? Does anyone?
That I do not know.
Don't know. Okay. So basically they are, so whenever this board votes to take out debt, let's say we're going to purchase a building or build a school or any kind of function of, this board as far as funding, if we're going to go to the financing route, then we must go before this commission and ask for their blessing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
This board would approve it first, and then it would go to the LGC for approval.
Right, so this board can approve, we could approve, the 5 of us could approve buying the Taj Mahal if we so chose to vote on that. However, whenever it gets to the LGC, they're going to say, well, wait a minute, that's out of your scope. You can't do that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so I would like to hear a thorough synopsis of the meeting from last Tuesday. Mike, would you be willing to give us a thorough synopsis of that?
And then I'll let you finish it up when we go. But yeah, so we took the next, sorry about that. As Jim said, anytime that you're borrowing over the 500,000 threshold, then you need to go there. So what they do, or what we do, is we craft the budget process, the projects that are included, the amount of money, and how they're to be funded, what method. We then bring that to this board for their approval. If it's approved here, then it goes to the Local Government Commission, and then they will be an independent board based, or some are elected officials, appointed officials, both on the state and local level, and they go through and look at the process. Did you follow the rules of the process? do you have enough local funds and funds to cover the debt, and then also cover your operational issues as well, or your operational expenses on an annual basis as well. There are
So
9.
How did the meeting go Tuesday then? Because it was yourself, a few staff, I
Yeah.
believe Chairman Morris was there.
Mhm.
So can you give us a synopsis of the meeting that was Tuesday?
Well, we presented our, well, actually, we didn't even make a presentation, a formal presentation. It was very quickly, and then
But
they
they had all the information.
They had the information. Not sure that everyone was completely knowledgeable of what was in there, but they did have the questions, and we did make sure that we gave them the facts, and they interpreted the facts as a board, and asked us several questions as to why did we choose the method that we were choosing. And I think our answer was that we've been doing this for quite a while, and they've been approved by them as well in the same manner. And then they asked additional questions as to why are you doing it for this particular one? And Jim, I'll let you.
Well, it was not for this particular item. The two items that you guys were there to address on Tuesday was separate from this item.
That is correct.
So what I was asking is a synopsis of that meeting. So what happened in that meeting? You said you didn't do a formal presentation, but you guys were had to go before the board.
They had the written presentation.
Okay.
there, so-
And so what was the result of that meeting? What was their feedback? What did they tell you at that meeting?
The ones that spoke, and Jim, I guess, and Chairman Morris, you can add to this, the ones that spoke, the most of the conversation was, why are you using lobs versus geobonds?
Can you speak up, please? Having a hard time hearing in the back.
Well, let me
Oh, okay.
let me
I'm sorry.
ask, how many of the commissioners here watched that meeting from Tuesday? I know Chairman Morris was there. You watched a little bit, Commissioner Furr, Commissioner Wortman, no?
I haven't watched it, but Commissioner Morris and I have talked.
Okay, so that's why I'm trying to get so you guys are aware of what took place at the meeting last Tuesday, so that way we're getting all of the information here.
You can watch it as well.
I've watched it several times,
I
but
mean, others can as well.
I was out of the country.
I
I didn't
understand.
have
And it was
cell
just last week, but that's where, I want to make sure that we have all the information here and we're being told. So what was so what were the two items that we went before that commission to ask for?
Give the items and then the cost.
The two items were, we were refinancing the draw program that was approved by the LGC on consent unanimously in 2022. Those projects, I think there was 10 to 12 projects that are probably 95 to 100% complete. And we used the draw program to finance those, and we were going out for lobs, fixed financing for those projects, and then to purchase the ACN building.
Okay, and so what was the decision by that board?
There was no decision.
And what was their direction? Because at the end of the meeting, it was told that they would give direction, or that you guys would probably be looking for direction after there was a non-decision. There wasn't a motion to approve it, and they rejected it. I mean, they rejected it.
There was no motion to not approve it as well.
Right, but how often does that happen in front of the LGC board? I was told that this has never happened in front of the LGC board in the history, that this has never happened. So that's what what I'm asking then is, that's why I want to make sure everyone has all the information here and understands. So what was the direction that they gave you after that meeting on Tuesday?
That is what we are waiting for the LGC. We have a meeting with them tomorrow to discuss that.
Okay, and is that here locally or in Raleigh?
It's virtual. I think.
Yeah, virtual.
Okay, and that will be them giving direction on moving forward, is that correct?
Well, we don't know.
We don't know. Yeah.
They just
So
set up a meeting, but with no agenda. So we're not
Okay.
sure really what it's going to entail.
I think that some direction needs to be given. So the 180, so it was two parts. The 186 million was the refinancing of projects that have already been completed. For instance, the new courthouse. And this was an attempt to try to turn this into fixed debt, which would be great. You know, we would rather have fixed debt. However, their concern was about the process and how it went through. And also, the second item was the ACN building, which they denied us the financing to be able to go out and get financing for the purchase of the ACN building. So I was told that the county had been warned 3 or 4 times about going down this avenue of financing. Can you guys speak to that, please?
I cannot.
They
no.
did have a speaker from a previous employee that they called to do that. He's no longer an employee of the Local Government Commission. His opinions was he didn't like that process when he worked there, but.
Well, apparently the entire board didn't like the process either because it wasn't approved.
Well, it was
They didn't
not,
voice their opinion.
it was not, there was, I think the entire board was uncertain as to the information. That's the reason that there was no motion. And I will further add that the ACN building was not denied. It was not acted on either.
They didn't approve it. And as I said, this is the
Right.
first time in history with that where there was been no motion to take action on that. So they didn't approve it for Cabarrus County to finance that. And I watched the same meeting, and I think it was pretty clear from them of what they were trying to get across to you and the staff. I felt like it was very clear. You know, I was told that, you know, the county has been warned 3 or 4 times that we should not be taking this route of financing, and that we're the only county in the state that uses this. The only county in the state, well, that goes in this direction, and that had been told that we should not be doing this.
Okay, will you allow me some time to
sure.
clarify that? Some of the other information, that information as well as some of the information that was given at the meeting was inaccurate. There are 2 legal options for financing in North Carolina, and that's limited obligation bonds and general obligation bonds, and then, of course, cash as well. The limited obligation bond draw note program was first utilized in North Carolina 16 years ago. I think Durham County was the first one to do that. Currently, there are at least 5 counties and 5 municipalities that have all issued draw notes, the same as we have. By the way, the draw notes that we have issued, that we were there for permanent financing on, were approved by the Local Government Commission unanimously on their consent agenda in May of 2022. This was just the final step of that process. Of the counties that currently, 5 counties and 5 municipalities that have issued draw notes, those draw notes total well over $5 billion and include multiple projects, including the construction of schools. As I mentioned just before, the LGC approved Cabarrus County's limited obligation bond draw program unanimously in both 2020, which that one has already been completed and permanently financed, and then also in 2022. The LGC basically tabled the 2024 refinancing of the 2022 draw note and the purchase of the ACN building with no motion. So that means it is still on the table. Our 2024 limited obligation bonds to take out the 2022 draw note had only a 4% increase in cost over the original estimates that were presented. That was primarily driven by the Mount Pleasant Library and Active Living Center, which has experienced some change in the scope of that project. So there have been some increases in that. It was stated at the meeting that that Cabarrus County was caught in a trap of rising interest rates from 2022 until the permanent financing that we were seeking now. That was an inaccurate statement. When in 2022, if we had issued fixed rate bonds rather than a draw note, the fixed rate interest would have been 3.88%. I think that is indicated on the agenda item at the LGC. The current rate estimate is 3.67%, less than what it was in 2022. If we had obtained permanent financing for those projects when that draw note program was issued, that would have cost the county an additional $4.2 million in interest and additional debt service during that time period. Since January of 2020, the LGC has approved limited obligation bonds issuance for over 50 individual counties with the approved total of several billion dollars. Many of these approvals included limited obligation bonds for schools. 3 counties issued limited obligation bond draw notes during this period, and those 3 counties are Wake, Durham, and Cabarrus. And each of those had schools and other project as a part of those notes.
Right, so I believe the issue that they had I believe, from what I understand, that whenever you go to take out these bands of financing debt, it was said in that meeting, some of the direction feedback was not to split a project up between different bands. You know, you build a courthouse, you finance the entire courthouse, not half the courthouse, come back later and try to finance the other half of the courthouse while you're already under construction. There was a lot of instances giving about decisions that were made that were not in the best interests of the taxpayer of Cabarrus County. So their direction is to get that under control, to package what has already been done, excluding the new projects, package that, and let's get that into finance, to fix debt before we move forward. So yes, that is correct. The other counties, they said this in the meeting, other counties use drawdown programs, but a lot of these have already been approved by the voter. That was another direction they had given, is that we never take these items to the voter and let them decide, the taxpayer decide, whether they want to take out the debt on some of this. And one of the gentleman's comments said that, this commission was created so that counties, cities and towns, local municipalities do not get themselves into a bad financial situation and go bankrupt. And he said that we're pushing the envelope on that. He said that in the meeting. So this one tonight, how do you feel that this is going to if this is approved by this board, you're going to have to go in front of the LGC to get approval on this. So how do you think that meeting's going to go whenever we were not approved on just 2 items last week? So we're going to turn around and go back up there next month and say, well, we're back and we haven't addressed our first issue, and now we want to take out an additional $270 million in the same program that they told us we should not be using. How do you think that meeting's going to happen? I mean, how do you think that's going to go, Mike?
I don't know. We'll go when we see. We'll plead our case, and again, the biggest opposition, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, is the LOBs, the limited obligation bonds versus the GO bonds. One is with voter approval, one is not. And some of that, and the reasons we've done that over the years is because we're growing so fast that it's going to take quite a while to get it prepared, get it to have the election and then come back. So we've had to move quickly on a lot of those things, and that's exactly
but other
what-
counties-
So they're both legal.
Right.
They're both part of the statute, they're both legal, so there was no issues there.
Right.
It was their preference.
And that's what was mentioned, that there's counties larger than our size who are doing a drawdown program, but they're doing it with a GO bond. So they have already went to the voters, the taxpayer, and said, hey, are you okay with us financing $300 million in new schools? And then once that is approved by the voter, then the LGC gives approval for a drawdown program. So there, it was not approved that day because, like I said, their concerns is that we have not sent any of this to the voters, and that they had already warned us that we're the only county in the state that is using this program, and they are warning us not to do it. And it seems like we're just going to continue down the road. As it was said, the state treasurer is chairman of that board. The Secretary of State on that board, she's a Democrat. We've got the state auditor. This is a nonpartisan board, so this is not a political issue. This is a financial issue that we're making a decision on. And the five of us are the representatives for the taxpayer on this board, and it's our fiduciary responsibility to make the best financial decisions for the taxpayer, for the citizens, for the people of this county. And I can't imagine why we are even considering this when we were just not approved for the other two last week. So they're going to think we're a joke. I mean, even the state auditor, at the end of her comments, her comments were, she said, I am shocked by the lack of thought and the lack of contingency plan, the lack of thought by bringing this to that commission, and the lack of contingency plan. She said that. And here we are admonished by them for bringing this up to them, and now we're going to get ready to turn around, walk back up there and say, well, we want to try to finance another $270 million. It doesn't make sense. What we need to be discussing is how we're going to fix the $186 million that they have denied us into fixed financing. We need to figure out how we're going to do that. And then also too, I pulled those items off the consent agenda because those deal with the same issues. Here we're going to end up, one of them is to go for, which we'll get to them later, but to go into a contract with the Behavioral Health Center. We don't even own the property, first off, and then we can't get the financing for this stuff. There is serious issues that we need to iron out before we even try to approach them to get more debt. So,
Chris, I want to make sure my light's on. Respond to some of the comments that you made. And, you're exactly right on some of the comments, particularly the one about the citizens of Cabarrus County have put us where we are. And, and we're supposed to make the decisions for the county, for the citizens. You look to us to make the decisions. And I remember when I first got on this board in 2014, because I'm a very conservative person. I think we need to watch what we spend and try to get the most for our dollars. We don't sacrifice quality for quantity and all of that. But one of the things that stuck out with me was the amount of debt the county had. And it was an issue during that particular election in 2014, was, we're almost $500 million in debt. Well, since 2014, we've built no telling how many schools, upwards of 10, 12 schools that I know of, 2 or 3 high schools that I know of, the courthouse, the emergency management center over on Cabarrus. God, I can't even remember all of the things that we've done. The new IT department on Cabarrus, the new infrastructure asset management on Cabarrus. We've done all of those things. And our debt to this day, now, I don't know exactly, Jim, you probably can tell me, our debt is probably not much more now than it was 10 years ago. And we've been able to do all of that. Now, how do you think, now, for each of you that, think that we're not being wise with the taxpayer money, how do you think that 3 credit reporting agencies, financial reporting agencies, would give us a AAA rating? We have a AAA rating. I mean, we owe less than we did or thereabout what we did 10 years ago, but yet, and we've got the AAA rating, which is much better than what it was then. And our borrowing capacity is probably not even 20% of what it could be. We're very conservative. Now, and so, talking about, and this would be a question, Rich, for you, because I don't know this part. I know that when we go out for 500,000 or more, for the LGC has to give us approval on that. All right? But what if we decide we want to do a general bond referendum? Is the LGC involved in that? Do they say, yes, you can, no, you can't? Or how does that work?
Commissioner, I'm really not sure about that, because I don't handle that part of the county's legal business.
Okay, that's fine.
We have bond counsel that determines that.
Don't let me lose my train of thought. Well, the reason I ask you that is because whenever you're trying to put a package together to go out with the limited obligation bond or general obligation bonds, I think most of the ones that we've done in the last number of years that I can remember have all been limited obligation bonds, and the LGC has never, ever give us a hassle about that. Now, all of a sudden, we're getting ready to have a board change in December, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, they look at us and say, well, why are you doing that? Well, that leads me to believe that somebody is tickling somebody's ear in Raleigh because of their beliefs. And you say it's not political, but it is political.
So you think I got on the phone and talked to the Democrats on that board?
I don't know. I think that there's some, I think there's more to it than we know, but that's irrelevant to the point. The point is, if we go out for general referendum, and I have no problem with that. The problem that I have, and Commissioner Morris will vouch for it because he's been on the board longer than I have, is the time that it takes. Just hypothetically, we're looking at, just use a hypothetical thing. Let's say 200 million. We need to put 200 million. Well, if we do the limited obligation bonds, we can probably have that approved through the LGC, everything, and all the balls are in motion. Everything's rolling. The schools are working on their contracts, and all the different things is being done. And then in 6 months, we have our financing. But if you have to wait to a general election, you're taking a chance whether or not you're going to be able to get that approved or not. But guess what? In the meantime, the schools are still getting like this. Where do they put the kids? You put it off for 2 years, and if it fails, if the bond fails, then it's 2 years before you can put it back on there. But what do you do with the children in the meantime? Do you just say, well, we're going to cap the school, we're going to cap the system, go somewhere else? I mean, you guys think that it's easy, but it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
I wish you had watched the meeting, because you just made a lot of the points of the reason why they didn't agree with it. They said these decisions should have been made differently years ago, so we had time to go out to the voters. We had the ability to have a couple of years to plan for this. That's where the concern is. Yes, you're right. It will take time now, and now we're in a mess. We're in a few years mess that has been snowballing, and now here we are. And that's exactly what the point they were trying to get across, is that these decisions shouldn't have been made then, and you wouldn't be in the mess that you're in now. And now we're in the mess, and so you say, well, the bond could fail. Well, we're probably not going to get approved for this drawdown. So then what do we do? We have got to fix our issues first. And so, as I said, you kind of made the points for them.
But what do you do, Chris, in the meantime with the children? What do you do?
Well, you answer that, because we're not gonna get approved for this 270 million for this.
But still, what are we
So then
gonna
what
do
are we
with the
gonna do?
kid? No, you tell me. What
Well,
are we
you've been
going
on
to
this
do?
board longer than I have.
Yeah, I have. And I see what all we've been able to do too. And these things that we've been able to do, we would not have been able to do them if we had to let time pass for a bond referendum.
Well, and that's, you say going back to 2014, we've done, you guys have done so much since then. Well, my property taxes have almost doubled too during that time. And we're got the same amount of debt. And we have been told not to go down this financing route. So, we basically can't afford this. What we need to be addressing is the issues that took place at the meeting last Tuesday. We have got to get that financial piece in order before we could spend another penny. It seems like, and Mike, I'd like to ask you this, on the way home from Raleigh from that meeting, I hope that you called the school system and said, hey, better not move forward with so this even excludes all of the new debt that was approved in the new budget. So the new schools, the lab RCCC. I mean, all of this is not going to be able to be financed. So I would imagine that the school system has been made aware that, potentially that replacement school at Coultram Webb is probably not going to happen at this point if we can't get the financing. Has there been some kind of conversation with the school system?
I've had conversations with both superintendents, yes, giving them an update on the meeting.
Because I know.
Until we get this settled, and it's not settled yet.
Right, okay. Because at Beverly Hills,
I have spoken to both superintendents and informed them of the meeting, and I told them to stay tuned until we get back, until this is settled.
okay. And so Beverly Hills, they already have the fencing all up around it. They've already cleared that out. Coultram Webb, they've already taken the sign down. They've been clearing it out. And we're not going to be able to put a replacement school there. I mean, we go back and forth the LGC, and as I said, this is a bipartisan, as divided as we are in the nation with politics, whether you're on the right or the left, this commission unanimously decided not to take action. I've never seen Republicans and Democrats agree so much on one issue, but they sure did it on that Tuesday. And so, I mean, the concerns with this drawdown was the variable interest rates. We get into this and we have, the variable interest rates. We don't take out fixed debt now and we go with this draw program. In 3 years, we could have a lot higher interest rate than if we were just go ahead and get the fixed debt now. And I understand this may have worked in 2020 or 2021. And like they said, you have been gambling with it and it may have worked out okay for the time being. But as interest rates have continued to increase, and will continue to increase, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Now, we're going to see a change in that come December, I hope, when President Trump gets reelected. We'll see some of those things settle down. But what I wanted to say before we got off on that was that the superintendent, his job is to take care of the school system, take care of the children. They bring us their proposals and their needs. And they tell us what they need and got the surveys and all the different things that tells us what they need. And in some cases, because I've been through it 2 times in the last 20 years, that if the school board says, well, I don't care how you get the money, I don't care if you raise taxes, I don't care what you do, if we got to have this. And if we can't provide it, and you know what's going to happen then? We're going to be in a lawsuit with the school board. And I've been through that 2 times. And guess what? Nobody wins. The school system ends up getting what they want, and both boards end up spending tons of money for legal fees. So you see, we're obligated to meet the needs of the school. We're required to do that. And a lot of times people forget about that. All we hold is the purse strings. But we have to do it. We have to support the schools. Mike, you got any comments? Because you've been on it. You've seen the situations where we've been sued by the school board 2 different times.
Yes, we have. And we ended up paying.
Right.
as well.
And so, you know, one thing I am going to say, going back to a comment you had made earlier, Commissioner Shue, is that I'm not going to say that some of these projects that's happened were not needed. Of course we need new schools. Of course we have to keep up with things. No one's arguing that there has not been some needs that we've had to address. It's been the mechanism in which we're going about getting the finance. That's what the biggest issue has been, and the LGC told us no. They have told us that we were given direction 3 or 4 times not to go this route, and we're still pursuing it. That's what the issue is here. So, you know, we could debate the projects all day long, and we've already done that in the budget and all that. That's not what we are discussing here. We're discussing the mechanism in which the county is going to try to seek financing, and we have been told that we need to go about this a different way, and so here we are. So as I said earlier, I'll go back to this. I noticed earlier, the mission statement on the top of our agenda says, good stewardship, and we will administer state requirements. Well, it is our duty to be good stewards of the tax dollars, and that's what we want to do. I don't agree with taking out so much debt that was approved in the last budget, but that was voted on. And then we must administer state requirements. Well, this is a state requirement regarding how the local government does their financing. So if we continue just to keep going down this route that they've advised us against, we're going against, well, the state government, we're going against our local mission statement. It just is baffling to me that we would go down this route again without addressing the issues that we were told to address from the local government commission.
One final comment, Chris, and, that is the way that we've been doing it, like you said, it has been working. Our debt is equal or maybe a little more, a little less than what it was. And we've been able to accomplish all of these things. And so changing the method, the old saying, if it's not broke, why fix it? So what have we done? Tell me what we've done that's wrong.
Like I said, you need to watch that meeting.
'Cause
If you watch the meeting, you will understand. And the state treasurer said that. He said, this is not work. I believe Jim had said, this is working for the county, and the state treasurer's immediate response was, it's not working for your county. That was his response.
How can he justify that?
He
though,
is the
Chris?
head financial officer
I don't care
in the
about
state.
that.
So, and it's a bipartisan commission. So I'm just telling you that if we don't address, it just keeps snowballing.
Well,
So
I just believe, my personal belief is local control. We need to have local
I am
control
all
to
for
where
local
our dollars go.
I am
and
all-
our dollars are spent.
I
And
am-
how the financing should be arranged. That should be up to us to do that. And then we've been doing that successfully, and then all of a sudden it changes. And
because we were
that is the
warned.
big question there.
We've been warned for a couple of years not to continue this. We have been warned
Can you
that.
justify that though, Jim?
Well, I wouldn't interrupt. You say we've been warned for a couple of years. They approved this draw program in May of 2020.
They did, and I wrote down exactly.
That
They
was
said
a
that they
couple of
approved.
years ago.
They approved in 2020, and then in 2022, they approved, but with the stipulation that we address how you're trying to finance half the courthouse in one band of financing, trying to finance the other half of the courthouse. It's in the video. It's in the meeting video that, yes, it was approved, but there was direction given, and that was in 2022.
So you think that it would have been a better option to finance the entire amount of the courthouse initially and paid interest and principal on it during all that? I mean, that was a lengthy construction project, so that's a question to ponder. And I wanted to also point out, twice you have said that we are the only county in the state. That is incorrect.
It was mentioned several times in that meeting.
Well,
I seen it with my own eyes, my own ears.
Oh, I was
yeah,
there.
you were sitting there, but
listening to it. That is incorrect, and I can give you the figures and the counties and the exact facts.
I think you guys were so shocked by the decision that you probably weren't absorbing what they were saying, because it was amazing to watch that, and you guys couldn't answer their questions. You couldn't,
I'll
you
go back.
give any sort of feedback. You couldn't, I mean, I think they were shocked. Just as I said, the state auditor said that it's embarrassing. We come up there and try to pursue that. She told that. That's embarrassing for me as a Cabarrus County representative. That's embarrassing for us.
If I'm not mistaken, the state auditor was serving as the chairman of the Board of Commissioners in Wake County when they issued this exact same program on limited obligation bonds.
She came back at you several times and said.
I'm
Yes, she
totally
did.
aware of that.
She
I
did,
was there, remember?
She told you she was a former, yeah, you were there, but like I said, I'm not sure that the information that was given and the direction that was given was absorbed. So, as I said, it's the mechanism in which we're doing this is the issue here, and we've been told no, or to change and revise, and it's just like, it's baffling to me how we can just go right back to them and say, well, we're here doing exactly the same thing. I mean, it's baffling to me. So, but anyway.
Okay, do any other commissioners have comments or questions before we move to the public hearing? If not, we will.
I've got a question.
Oh, please.
If they approved it with conditions, as Commissioner Meismer stated, what did we do? What did we do? What steps did we take to try to meet that guidance? I mean, if that's what happened, what did we do?
Well, my understanding in 2022, that it was not approved with conditions. So I don't know where that's coming from. I'm not aware of any conditions in 2022. It was unanimous on the consent agenda.
There was a comment in the meeting made that it was approved, but there was direction given that it needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, my question is, since we're going to hear something, you should hear something this week, is that correct? Or when is your next meeting?
We have a conversation with them tomorrow.
Tomorrow, so we should get more details tomorrow that can be shared with us as far as, like if they tell us no, then of course, we have to have a plan for the new direction.
They asked us what our contingency plan was, and everybody said there's just not one. Just kind of sat there and said there's not one, so it was telling.
So we feel confident tomorrow it may turn out a different way.
We should receive some direction tomorrow. The actual local government commission meeting where they would take action on this is August 6th or 9th.
I think it's the 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to determine really what the outcome or what we think as a commission, I'm assuming.
Let me ask Commissioner Wortman, Commissioner Furr, have you had any communication from county management about this situation that happened on Tuesday?
I saw it on Facebook.
Right, okay.
Had any type of cellular service until yesterday.
So, like I said, I just want to make sure everyone has all the information on this, and, if you watch that meeting, it will tell you everything you need to know.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Jim. Yep. Okay, we will now open the public hearing. I have 5 cards. First one is from Larry Pittman.
Larry Pittman, 250 Roberta Road, Southwest in Concord. It's always hard to know where to begin, but I listened, couldn't get it on my computer, so I dialed the number and listened to that meeting with the LGC. And frankly, I was appalled because even Elaine Marshall, whom I consider to be one of the most corrupt people in our state government, wouldn't even go along with you on this. And to say there was no decision, if I'd asked my wife to marry me and she didn't give me an answer and just kind of hemmed and hawed and, well, I don't know what to say and all this, I'd have taken that as a no. So that's what happened. You got no motion the other day to do anything, but you did get told that you were going in the wrong direction. You need to stop it. So I think you need to take that to heart and change your plans. I mean, you're talking about 186 million over there, and you're adding 530 million in that future debt, and now you're talking about 270 million. I mean, you're getting on up there. And you done been told it's the wrong way to do it. So quit doing it that way. Go to the people. You know, I've always voted no on bond referendum. Always have, always will. But a lot of people do vote for them. But everybody in this county deserves the opportunity to make that decision for themselves. They don't deserve to have these decisions made without even consulting them. So you need to do bond referendums if you want to do this kind of stuff. Somebody asked me the other day, how do they keep doing this? How do they keep going more and more in debt? And I said, well, it's pretty simple. You know, if I do foolish things with my own money, that's just dumb. But when you're foolish with other people's money, that's crooked. And crooks don't know how to stop being crooks. Well, I hope you'll learn. Because it's time to stop doing this to the people in this county. You know, we talked about before about the revaluation. You could have waited until things calmed down and got a little better, so you didn't have to go up so high on what people have to pay for their county government. And adding more debt is just going to make it worse on them. And if you got to add debt, that's one thing. But to do it in a way that you have been told is not appropriate is not caring that you're hurting the people. That's exactly what that is. If a thief comes into my house, he's not going to ask my permission to take my money. Well, don't be a thief. Ask the people's permission next time.
Okay, our next
Excuse me,
card.
one last thing, if I may. This stuff about no applause is a First Amendment violation. You might hear something about that.
Okay. Next card is from Tammy Pittman.
I hadn't planned to speak this evening, but after I got here, I just couldn't let it go. I can't believe after you were told no and admonished by the local government commission, you would consider yet another draw financing program. There have been 2 bond votes, I've looked it up, in Cabarrus County for voters to vote on since 2002. 2, Cabarrus County Community College bond and Cabarrus County School bond. That's it. You've not gone to the voters for any of this debt. Now you're asking for an additional $270 million. We in Cabarrus County need to put a halt to more debt. We as individuals have had to due to our economy. So does Cabarrus County government. And when asked about how do we pay for schools, it's called needs, not wants. There are schools out there that could have been built for a lot less with needs, not wants. Thank you.
Okay, our next card is from Jim Quick.
Good evening, gentlemen. Jim Quick, Concord. It's a rare thing when you see, I think it's 9 politicians all agree. We had the Secretary of the State, the Auditor, the Treasurer, the Secretary of Revenue, and then 5 of your peers from across the state that have been appointed by the governor, or General Assembly leadership to provide guidance. And this was here since the Great Depression to make sure that the taxpayers are taken care of. I had the opportunity to look at this meeting on Sunday, and I really was shocked. If Kenny asked for a motion to do something, and no one on this board said, I'm going to make a motion, Kenny's smart enough to know that motion's not going anywhere. He wouldn't pretend to come back next month and make the same motion without some revisions. And so, Lynn, the one thing about all these other counties doing this is, because I know you haven't had a chance to watch the meeting, is all these other counties are going before the voters, for getting a bond referendum. Some of those large counties, Steve, are using bans like Wake County, Mecklenburg County, because they're building so much. The commission said that the problem is not the bans. They understand in a rapidly growing county that you have projects on top of each other. What they're saying is, for example, this commission, 3 people voted to spend $350 million of debt. And they go, as a commission, that could be a problem. And so what they're saying to you is go before the people and get a plan. Now, our school leaders have been very straightforward with us. Lynn, they've told us they're going to need $1 billion over the next 10 years. We shouldn't be taking this one little chunk at a time. We should be planning like the way other 99 counties in our state are doing, planning for the horizon. We know we got to build the school in 26 and 28 and 30. Let's get together, get that before the people and let them vote. And then we can use a band approach to be able to save us money. But it just doesn't make sense for us to be able to be doing this approach. These leaderships clearly told us that we need to go in a different direction. And I pray that this commission does not send our leadership back to Raleigh next month on the 6th with the same proposal that they've already shot down. I hope that we really consider taking a different approach.
Okay, our next card is from Laura Blackwell Lindsay.
Laura Lindsay, Harrisburg. Okay, the state treasurer made it clear in the meeting that your applications were denied and died for lack of motion. It's on video. Steve and Mike, you both lied up here to try and smooth it over. This is a cover-up. Anyone who watches that video will see that you are lying to the public right now. The state treasurer and state auditor urged you to pursue a GO bond, but you refused to. You are too scared the public will not approve your projects. You're unelected, Steve. Put it to the vote for the public. Listen to the state treasurer. Listen to the state auditor. Thank you.
Okay, our next card is from Chris Cranston.
First thing I'd like to do in my first 10 seconds is thank you to everybody who spoke. Very good job. Thank you very much for coming out and having the courage to speak in front of these guys, even though we know they don't want us here in the smugness. And then, remember when we were talking about vapes? Like, let's test everybody for vaping. The kids are still in trailers in schools, Lynn. It's no moment to have a parade for you for your accomplishments. We're not anywhere where we need to be. There's a giant disconnect here. If you guys, I've been in the private sector my whole life. I've been on my own since I was 15 years old, and I've had my dome taken off, Lynn. I admire you for being here, but I know what it takes, and you really, seriously, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. We need to worry about getting kids in classrooms with not 45 other kids in there and putting them in trailers before we worry about all these other things. You guys are talking about responsibilities and the things that we have to do. Well, let's shed some of the stuff we don't have to do. All these things that you guys have, your pet projects and all these things like Wortman bullying everybody with my money at the last minute right at the vote because he wants another $200,000 for this or no, and then you guys are like, oh yeah, sure. We're going to let him bully us, no problem. Or maybe that was said behind closed doors, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and then you guys are going to be like, "Okay, we're going to give in." I don't understand why you guys can't, as a team, talk about these things and not have Kenny Wortman call you and say, "Well, I'll vote for it, but I need this, 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 and this in front of everybody." It makes you guys all look. We're embarrassed. And I'm telling you, if you go back to those same people with no other contingency plan, it is going to be you're going to have your tails handed to you. I've been doing things my whole life and trying to get permissions to clap for others and things, and that's a new one. But you're not going to you better go in there with another plan. I'm telling you, or tickle some ears, because they're not going for it. And the people aren't. So even if you ram it through and you congratulate yourselves, it's a shame, and it's a sham. The people don't want it, Lynn. You don't get control. We have control. We're the control. You want local control? Well, then give us some. We're the local citizens here.
Okay, that concludes all of the cards that have been turned in for public comment on the public hearing. So I will close the public hearing. The next item under new business is an appeal on a JCPC, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding, and Daryl Bago is here to talk about that.
I've got a question. Before the previous item, do we not need to have a motion for that? It looks like we need a motion for that. Lauren saying yes.
I think you are correct. Yes, we do need a motion to approve the application for the installment financing contract for the 2024B draw program.
Before we do that, how long is the meeting?
The meeting is roughly about an hour, I would say. But the direction that it seems like is that we need to clean up the $186 million of refinancing that they're wanting to do. So we need to clean that up, go back to them for that approval. I feel like that needs to be cleaned up before I'm not saying that some of the schools don't need to be built. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is not a project-oriented discussion. This is the funding mechanism, the financing mechanism of how we go about achieving this. And the $186 million that they did not approve for fixed financing, that's what they said we need to clean up to go back to. And not transferring projects from one band that we had taken it out to another band, because some of that had been going on. So,
Because I haven't seen it. I'd like to see it. I don't know if are those comments that we've been talking about, are those all in a 15-minute to where I'd like to watch it. I don't know if we can take a recess. I've not had the chance because I've not been here.
well, yeah, my suggestion would be that we table it. At least, I feel like what we need to do is clean up the $186 million, get that addressed. And I think that would please the LGC. And then I think they would be amenable to us coming back to them for some debt that we need to address immediately. But then, of course, in the future, we're going to have to go to GO bonds. I mean, we're going to have to do voter-approved debt. I mean, that's what that's the direction they had given us.
And I apologize for making you stand, but
You might can have a seat if you'd like, because this might go on for just a moment, and we still got to vote too. So,
is it out of the question 100% to be able to get this on the ballot? Like, what is the time frame to be able to get this on?
As I understand it, of course, the process that we went through tonight, the public hearing, and if we have a motion to approve that application, those are two of the things that are required by the local government commission in order to apply. Number one, it has to be approved by the board, and number two, you have to have conducted a public hearing. That doesn't mean you have to do it, but that clears those two steps. If we do not take action on this tonight, then it would be off the table for the August local government commission meeting.
And what are the ramifications of us not taking action tonight?
That means that would bump it out yet another month. Now, if we decided we did not want to do the draw program, and if we wanted to take a different approach, if we wanted to do general obligation bonds, you're not, I'm pretty sure that it's too late to put a general obligation bond on the ballot for this November. The law does not allow you to have general obligation bond votes in odd year elections. So that would push it out to, let's see, 2024, 2025, 2026 would be the earliest that you could put anything on a ballot.
So that would push the school construction, that would push.
Well, I mean, you know, you can go down the list of items that are on there. I think replacement of the HVAC system at Concord High School is, I believe, I'm doing this strictly from $9 million.
There's
I
several-
think Winkler
schools.
Elementary School HVAC system was $7 million, and there are multiple other ones. So, you know, you just have to take a chance if you think these HVAC systems are at the point where they need to be replaced, and you extend that out to 2026.
I think so the situation we're in, I think
We're in a no-win situation with this,
well,
is what it is.
So yes, there are items on the financing list that are repair items that need to be done. You know, air conditioning systems that need to be done. But the issue is that we have went through and financed so much of these big projects that we need to get our financial house in order as far as funding some of these smaller projects first, like the air conditioning stuff, pay for that with cash, and instead of financing that. And we're going, and so we could vote on this, and we could send our staff up to Raleigh in August. But until we clean up the one item, I mean, they didn't approve the ACN purchase, so, but the 186 million that has already been spent, already been done, until we clean that up, they're not going to approve this. They're going to say, this is the same, basically, you're headed down the same path we told you not to. So I think if we were to clean up the 186 million, get that done, have a argument for, you know, being able to go and say, hey, well, we got to have, you know, 2 schools immediately, we would have a better sell than them just going back up there and being an exact same repeat of the last meeting. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So I feel like we need to take some time to get our financial house in order on that. That's where also too, you know, I'd pulled like our, you know, capital improvement plan. You know, we need to really take a look at some of this. It's easy to vote on a budget that has $350 million in new projects and say, yeah, well, we want that. But the reality is we're not going to be able to afford it. And so we really going to have to talk about where we should put our money that is the most priority at the moment.
So how do we clean it up?
Well, this direction tomorrow, basically, I believe how to clean it up would be the items that have already been spent, you know, done. What they wanted is for the items to be, before they move it into fixed debt, they want items to be complete. So whatever items on that list, and we'd have to go through that. But I think that direction will be given, I would assume tomorrow, since that's what the meeting's about, is take out the items that have not been completed. So we're not borrowing it in one band, then going to 2 years later in another band, borrow more money for the same project that we had borrowed money for before. It's cleaning that up and packaging the items that we have already spent money on, that we have already accomplished, and then put that into fixed financing debt.
Are we allowed to put something like this on a work session until we find out? Are we able to vote on it at a work session once we hear? Because my problem is they weren't wrong, and I've not seen the video, but if you don't want to look stupid going up there, and he hit it on the head. You know, if you ask somebody to marry you and they don't say anything, I mean, that's a no. That's a no. But I haven't been able to see or hear the video, and so now I'm getting ready to blindly vote. So is it possible to wait until we get that guidance tomorrow, and then can we vote on that at a work session? I'd feel a little more comfortable, at least after hearing what they have to
Typically,
say.
we do not vote on items of that nature at the work session, and primarily because our work session does not include opportunity for public comment and input. I mean, typically, if we suspend the rules and vote on something at a work session, it's something of more of an emergency type nature. Our work session in August will be on the 5th, The LGC meeting will be on the 6th. You know, it's certainly up to the board, but if you take the steps to fulfill the requirements, then you have the flexibility once we get some further guidance and discussion. The discussion tomorrow will be with the LGC staff. The LGC board members, you know, I think somebody mentioned Elaine Marshall earlier, her comment during the meeting, which I'm sure you saw, was, "I am overwhelmed with information."
You're right, the staff in that meeting had a lot to say, who advised the board members.
Well,
They had a lot of the information.
Actually,
and
the
information.
staff had included a recommendation to approve on the agenda.
Well,
I have it
they
in-
sure didn't, it sure didn't sound like it
I have
in the
it in
meeting.
writing.
Okay, well, maybe you had that in writing, but.
Right here.
But they sure didn't speak that way whenever you listen to the
In
meeting.
the agenda.
But I think probably the best bet would be to just put I'm not saying that we don't address this, but we need to hear what the direction is tomorrow and then go from there to see what they say about our already outstanding debt that they haven't approved to be put in. I can't vote to go into more debt without knowing how we're going to pay for this $186 million that they didn't approve for fixed debt. So I feel like we need to hear some direction from them and get a comprehensive plan together before.
Well, since we've had this discussion, we've had public comment, is there not a reason we couldn't suspend the rules at a work session after we get that guidance and then vote for it then?
We certainly could if it would be a vote of
Because
this
I am
board.
not comfortable voting on this right now.
Can we have the school board's notoriously to have called meetings. After we get the information, can we have a called meeting to vote on this?
We could do that, or we could do it at the work session.
Well,
I mean,
Either.
if time's a problem, then
Is there a time crunch?
Well, our work session will be on August the 5th.
I'm talking about on the financial
On
part.
the financial part,
On Jim's part.
well, there's a couple things. Actually, the sale of the bonds was scheduled to have already occurred, so that's been delayed. I'm not sure exactly. I suspect that is waiting for action of this board.
So if I table this right now, how much money are we going to lose between now and the work session?
0.
I'm going to make a motion that we table this till our work session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this item to our August 5th work session. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And Mr. Bago, I apologize for the delay, but you're up. And this is on a funding appeal from the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council.
Yeah. Hope everybody's okay, everybody. That was a lot of energy, because I'm bringing something before you that's a lot less money, but it's no less important, you know. In my house, we live under the adage, he that is faithful with small things then becomes master over much. And so this is a small thing, but it's very important. So thank you for your time and your attention. I gave a handout really to expedite things, to provide context to the remarks I'm going to make. I respect your time and really wanted to be sure that I contextually gave you all the information. But basically, there are 3 known certainties and a significant question surrounding YDI's appeal hearing before the BOCC tonight. Again, 3 certainties in one very important question. Please see handout number 1, okay? Handout number 1, or page 1. The first known certainty is YDI's appeal does not fundamentally change the fiscal year 24-25 JCPC funding recommendations and does not at all jeopardize or detrimentally impact 1 dime of the recommended funding for JCPC programs because they all were fully funded and more than $41,000 was left on the table unallocated. So YDI only seeks $39,000 of those funds to serve 15 juveniles here in fiscal year 24-25. please look at handouts 2 and 3. There you'll see that the second known certainty is this appeal certainly is not about YDI's credibility in compliance to its program contract. Because what you will see on page 2A, the North Carolina Department of Public Safety Measurable Outcome Report for YDI for fiscal year 23-24 show that we achieved 100% of our listed goals. Every last one of them, 100%. Also, if you look at 2B, you will see a DJJ court counselor, which is the primary referral source for our program, stated at the time near the monitoring session that YDI period, quote, YDI period is the best JCPC program. Hands down, kids and parents love it. And then if you look on page 3, you will literally see a full-page recommendation letter from the Performance Learning Center regarding the impact the YDI program had on its students. Now, if you would please, if you go to handout number 4, the third and final known certainty is YDI's appeal clearly meets the appeal standard of the Cabarrus JCPC bylaws, which states the basis of an appeal is based on, and I quote, what statutes or division, Board of County Commissioners, and or JCPC policies or procedures are alleged to have been violated and what action is requested. I already made my request, but this is the appeal standard that is supposed to stipulate the merits of YDI's appeal before you today, not the JCPC's grant review process, how many hours they spend on the process, how they are good people who volunteer their time, et cetera, et cetera. Good people sometimes make bad decisions or bad mistakes. All I ask is that you carry out your duty and responsibility as governing agents of the county by following policy, I just read it to you, and to uphold and be examples of the values and standards of integrity, transparency, and accountability that you represent. That's all I ask. You just give it a fair shot. Therefore, I will now detail how the actions of the JCPC Monitoring Committee during YDI's monitoring and the conduct by leadership at the previous 2 appeal levels have been in distinct and direct violation of the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, which is a state entity, minimum policy and procedure standards for JCPCs, as well as the values and standards for the BOCC and county operatives. So please turn to handout 5. We're just going to go move right along here. The first violation is Section 3, Operations, Program Oversight, and Monitoring. You'll see here that it states that the monitoring committee is to review program compliance with the current approved program agreement, and that the program manager should provide reports regarding services rendered during the reporting period, which is July 1st, 2023 through November 2023. You can see that right there on the form. That's the time period that the monitoring is supposed to review. Now, if you would with me, please turn to page 6. You'll see a copy of our monitoring report. If you look at point A, YDI's monitoring report states from the beginning, in black underlined, it says the program services, YDI's program services, are consistent with the 23-24 program agreement approved in August 2023, which includes an additional location at the Performance Learning Academy. And therefore, everything in red was both irrelevant and inappropriate to include on the current year monitoring report because it had nothing to do with that reporting period. But, and if any previous issues existed, it's clear that they were already resolved. So if you look at point B then, the report also states that the PLA was not inspected at this time because it was a program location site. However, the PLA, or PLC rather, was never inspected, and that is a monitoring requirement and a violation of monitoring policy. If you look down at the bottom of page 6, the handout on page 6, it's a monitoring requirement. But I'm gonna tell you, there was another reason why I think that they didn't go out to the site, because if you go to page 12, this just came in to me yesterday, you'll see that here is the fiscal year 22-23 program agreement of the other program that operated at the Performance Learning Center in fiscal year 22-23. However, the PLC was not listed as a sanctioned site location. I shared this fact at several JCPC meetings and even at last year's appeal before the board. It's on tape. But the JCPC program, this JCPC program was not cited as being out of program fidelity and compliance, but we were. Okay, so now if you go to point C, please, if you don't mind, if you return to point C on handout 6, I'll finish that handout. You will see that an area consultant follow-up was recommended to address areas of concern discussed. That never occurred. Never occurred. If it's on that monitoring committee, they're supposed to follow up any issues. That never occurred. Okay, now if you go on to handout number 7, I was so bothered by how YDI's monitoring was handled, I sent this letter to the monitoring committee to express my concern, especially as it pertains to putting critical comments on the fiscal year 23-24 monitoring form that were inconsistent and misleading to our current programming status. However, I received no reply, none. But you will see as I continue on that this becomes a consistent practice throughout YDI's funding and appeal process. So, sirs, if you please go to 8A, we're almost halfway there. If you go to handout 8, so this leads to the second violation, which pertains to, if you see 8A, Section 3, Operations Again, Program Oversight, which states a copy of the JCPC monitoring report should be given to the program manager, now this is not even debatable, in advance of submitting the copy to the JCPC board. And that's really just to make sure that everything is clear and accurate and that everybody's on the same page. But if you look at Part B on page 8, you'll see that YDI clearly received our monitoring report the same as the JCPC board in all the other programs on February the 14th, 2024, which was 3 months after our first monitoring on November the 8th and 2 months after the concern letter I sent on December 15th, resulting in vast opportunities being foregone to clarify pertinent questions and concerns that could have been addressed. So the actions of the JCPC Monitoring Committee towards YDI are not only clear violations of JCPC state minimum policy standards, but they also reflect an intention to deliver an errant monitoring report that misinformed the JCPC board and contributed to our unfair funding recommendation. The committee's actions are also contrary to the strategic planning values posted on the county website pertaining to integrity, which states that government representatives must show credibility through honest, transparent actions. Okay? Now let's talk about leadership, okay, that we experienced during our appeal processes. The most egregious violations of the county's strategic values of communication and integrity, transparent accountability were committed by leadership. During the JCPC appeal on May the 15th, the board chair made a blatantly untrue statement that YDI was operating out of fidelity to our program model because we provided services at the Performance Learning Center. That was the exact quote. If you see handout 9A, and the reason why I have to refer to the county managers is this charge is substantiated in the county manager's appeal letter to YDI, but they do not appear in the minutes. So how is this critical fact important enough to be in the county manager's letter to us, but not in the official meeting minutes? That doesn't make very much sense. So now if you see handout number 10, you'll see, but I knew her statement was untrue, and on the same day I sent an email with a copy of YDI's fiscal year 23-24 program agreement, which clearly shows that both the PLC as an approved site location and that she signed off on it on 8/1/23. The county also signed off on it. You see it right there in bold letters. So that was not a violation. Once again, I received no reply, and this violates the communication provision of the county strategic planning values that state, we practice clear, accurate, and timely communication to support connection, understanding, and trust. It also violates the integrity provision of the strategic planning values that states, we demonstrate integrity by always upholding the organization's ethical and professional standards. We are dependable and work to establish credibility through honest, transparent actions. Okay? Please go to handout 11, and we're almost done here, gentlemen. During the same JCPC appeal meeting on May the 15th, the North Carolina Department of Public Safety area consultant told the board that he had conducted a follow-up meeting with YDI as recommended in the monitoring report you just saw. That too was a blatant untruth, so I sent him an email as well asking him to produce documentation of his visit. Once again, no reply. This also violates the communications and integrity provisions in the county's strategic planning values. I kept getting ghosted, no answers. So let's talk about those meeting minutes. If you go to handout number 13, the concerns about it. Curiously, the statements I just mentioned to you about the JCPC board chair and the area consultant didn't appear in the May 15, 2024 JCPC board minutes when they were sent out a week prior to the June 15th JCPC meeting, which is when they would formally vote on. So they weren't even approved yet. I sent out a detailed email to the JCPC board leadership and the county manager expressing my concern that the minutes were washed and didn't meet the North Carolina open meeting statutes requiring minutes to be full and accurate. And the general standard on that is that if a person who did not attend the meeting should be able to read the minutes and derive an accurate assessment or understanding of what took place. If you read those May 15th meetings, there's no way that you can derive what took place. I also pointed out particularly how the false comments by the board chair about YDI's fidelity compliance were left out of the May 15th meeting minutes, but in contrast, her full response was included just a month earlier in the April JCPC minutes after a question about YDI's funding, and you see that right there in the middle. The full entire quote was in the minutes before. Okay, they were full and accurate minutes just the month before. So I shared that the omission of these statements by the JCPC board chair and the North Carolina Department of Public Safety area consultant appeared to me to be an attempt to diminish the merits of YDI's appeal. And I was correct. I was correct. Again, no reply or response to that inquiry. This, again, violates the communication and integrity provisions in the county strategic planning values. Now, let's go to the county manager appeal, finally. Okay, if you please refer back to page or handout number 9, please. First, the county manager's letter doesn't even mention a review of the policies and procedures I cited as violations in YDI's appeal, which is precisely what Mr. Downs is supposed to do per the appeals rules on page 4. And I want to take the time, if you go back to the handout on page 4, I want to read it directly. I want you to see it because I put it in red. It's right there in the JCPC handouts. And it says, the county manager will review the appeal to determine if any statute, policy, or procedure has been violated. That's it. That's the standard. It totally pivoted around it. It didn't even address it. So, in my opinion, that's not following the JCPC appeals protocols. So then, if you would please return to page 9 so we can finish that out. If you look at point C, commissioners. Second, in Mr. Downs' summary, he states the JCPC is under no obligation to fund programs not yielding the intended outcomes. Where I just showed you in handouts 2 and 3 that demonstrate YDI achieved 100% of our intended outcomes. 100%. And that's not my report, that's the state's report. Now please see handout, look at point B there. Third, the county manager cited the May 15, 2024 JCPC meeting minutes as a reference point for his decision to deny our appeal, approximately 4 days before they were even formally voted on. So that was weird to me. I sent him an email asking if that was accepted practice. See, very quickly, hold your spot there. Handout 14. I sent that email, okay? Handout 14 is when I sent that email, especially since I expressed reasonable concern about the viability of the minutes to begin with. Again, no reply at all. But let me explain. Look at a timeline that's pretty curious about all of this. You see, we met with the county manager on May the 29th, okay, my wife and I. Okay, he then met with the JCPC leadership sometime soon after, and we asked to be in that meeting since the JCPC had a representative at our meeting with the county manager. Okay, we were refused. Okay, 3, the minutes draft were released on June the 8th, 24th. Now, the reason why that's important, all the explicit details of our appeal complaints were known in that county manager meeting with JCPC representation, signaling exactly what to leave out of the minutes. We had turned everything over to the county manager at that time. So then 5, the county manager references the May 15th minutes before they were even voted on in his appeal letter to us. That was curious to me. Okay, so in conclusion, YDI's appeal has met the requirement and clearly displayed in documenting specific violations of JCPC policies and procedures and county standards on values of honest communication, integrity, and transparency. Again, as I said in the beginning, there are three certainties. 1, that YDI's appeal request doesn't at all fundamentally change the JCPC's funding recommendations, nor does it negatively impact any funded JCPC program. They are all fully funded. 2, YDI provides meaningful and measurable benefits that are well documented to the juvenile clients and families we serve here in Cabarrus County. That's not disputed. 3, YDI's appeal has met the requirement of clearly displaying and documenting specific violations of JCPC policies and procedures and county standards that caused and/or contributed to an unfair funding recommendation. There's only one question that remains. As I said in the beginning, will this board act justly and in accordance to the strategic plan values posted on the county's website, especially as it pertains to transparency and accountability? Or will you pivot around or passively pass the responsibility down the appeal pipeline? I sort of feel that's what your colleagues at the JCPC are hoping and even expecting you to do. So far, the actions and attitudes displayed by leadership during YDI's JCPC appeal processes seems to reflect a belief that rules, policies, procedures, and standards are only tools of accountability applied by the leadership, but not to the leadership. But I'm hopeful because this all started with an invocation. So I'm believing that wisdom and trust and faith will prevail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. County Attorney, could you give us some direction as the typical protocol on an appeal of this nature?
I think I can. The appeal process is contained in the JCPC bylaws, and actually he had part of that in his presentation.
Yeah, it's page 4, it's handout 4 in your book.
And this is the second year that this has been appealed by Mr. Begay. You considered one last year. Different issues from what I remember, but it is his second appeal that's gone to this board. The procedure is that it goes, there's a funding committee of JCPC that's part of their board, but they make the recommendations as to who to fund and who not to fund. And then there's an appeal process to the full board, which he undertook, and that board approved or upheld what the funding committee decided to do. And then the next appeal after that is to the county manager, and then the next appeal after that is to this board, and then there's an appeal to the state if this board denies the appeal. You have basically two options. You can't approve the funding. You can either deny his appeal, or you can refer it back to the JCPC board for them to review it. You can send it back down to them to look at it again. So those are your two options under the.
Can I interject there, Ellen? But the appeal basis I read, did they violate any policy, statutes, or procedures? That's what the basis of the appeal is all about. And the violations here literally literally had an impact on the rest of the board in terms of determining our funding consideration. The first appeal was based on untruths. And what I forgot to read here, and I apologize for that, I asked for the recording. We talked about recordings. Watching that video, being able to go back to that video is important to hear exactly what went on that meeting, right? So I asked for the audio recording. Barely a week or so after the meeting, once I saw that the meetings were washed, I said, well, the audio recordings will bear it all out. I was told that the recordings were destroyed. They were discarded. Okay, look on handout number 14. I sent that request. And I also asked, I said, wow, I said, is that normal policy? Do BOCC terminate audios or video recordings once the minutes have been approved or whatever? I didn't get any reply to that. Because I know that the state statute says that the minutes of the JCPC meetings goes to the county manager's office. So that decision was made either by the county manager or it was made by the JCPC leadership to discard it and discard it fast. Okay, to the point where I had to refer to his letter just to validate the fact that they were talking about fidelity to a model about me being at the school that were totally cleansed out of the minutes. So all I'm saying is the stipulation for an appeal is the answer. Did you see any violations of statutes or policies? I think that's clear. I think that's clear.
That still doesn't change the underlying
okay.
things that this board can do. They have two choices, and they're not in a position to make findings of fact. You presented what's on your appeal. There's nothing in the record before this board as to what JCPC did. So it's not a complete record. That's why they can only do two things. They can either deny your appeal or they can refer it back to them.
Okay, Mr. Coach, when you're talking about complete record, what are you referring to?
I'm referring to documents that they had that they considered, not just the ones you presented, but there are other documents that they had that were prepared as part of their procedure concerning funding and then their appeal. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, no, and I get it, Mr. Clutch, and I'm not trying to be combative or go back and forth.
I'm not trying to be combative.
But the stipulation is, were there violations? See, you can pivot and go around. You can and talk about the funding process. That's not what a debate. Yeah, they went through a process and made a decision, but it was an errant decision because they violated policies and procedures.
That's the basis of one of the bases of your appeal. I understand that. Okay. But that doesn't change what this board can do or not do.
Yes,
they don't decide that there was they cannot decide just based on what you presented tonight that there was a violation of any policy or procedure. They may feel that way. I don't know. That's up to them to decide. But the only two things they can do is to either deny your appeal or to refer it back to JCPC. And then they can deal with it from there. But you the appeal cannot be decided just based on what you presented tonight. If you're looking for some sort of a finding about what it actually happened. So that's all I'm trying to say.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we, I'm not going to vote deny it. I'm not going to deny it, but I'd like to make a motion that we refer it back to the JCPC because we don't have both sides. We got his side. We don't have the other side as our attorney has recommended. So I would make a motion that we pass it back to the JCPC and let them make the decision. We supply the funds to JCPC and they are required to distribute those funds as they see fit based on the information they have. So
according to policies and procedures.
Yeah, according to policies and procedures of their own making. And
the state makes the mating. The bylaws of the JCPCs are basically garnered from the state.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to Commissioner Shue's motion? I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to ask the question. If there's appeal process for him to appeal to the commission, what's the point if we can't do anything but send him back to where he came from? I mean, I hear I have to go back to school system. We have appeal, you hear from both sides, and then we make decisions. The board makes decisions. This is just, I mean, I don't understand why there's an appeal process if we just want to sit here and listen to him talk.
I think that would be a part of the state statutes. Is that correct?
Well, he's right. The bylaws are based on state bylaws, standard bylaws. But to answer your question, Commissioner Kerr, legal appeals can take a lot of different forms. If you appeal something from, say, court, a trial court to appellate court, let's say the Court of Appeals, they can do only certain things with it, and one of the things they can do is send it back down to the trial court. This is kind of like that. And so it does make you feel like maybe, why are we part of the appeals process? And I think the only reason I know of is because you do provide funding. So that's why it comes through the county manager up here, and then it would go to the state if you denied it. Okay. And then they have the overall supervisory, authority over the JCPC across the state. But under the bylaws, I say which are standard bylaws, you only have two options.
Yeah. And if I may, and one last comment, if you don't mind, sir, is that why would we expect a different result? Why would we expect they watch the minutes? Everything that has come to this point has been a result of the leadership of the JCPC board and of the appeal process. That's where all of the statutes and everything has failed amongst the leadership. Why would I expect a different result by it going back to the JCPC? Does that even make sense to you?
I got a question for you.
There's
Rich.
$41,000 left
if
on
this
it.
goes,
We're discussing a motion, so if someone addresses a question to you.
If this goes back to the, if the motion passes and this goes back, if this is referred back to the JCPC board and the same conclusion is drawn, will it return back to this board and then we'll make a decision, and if we deny it, then it will go to the state, or once we refer it back to the JCPC, this will be?
Well, as I read it, he can come back through the appeal process again. If it goes back to them and they make the same decision, I think it can come back through the county manager again, and then up to you all, and then to the state, depending on if the appeals are denied. I know it seems like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's all that the bylaws say about that.
So if we send it back, chances are we're going to have the same result.
I don't know that I could say
And it would be done.
I say, but if we deny it, there's not a chance at all.
Yeah,
So
and it will go to the state. He can appeal to the state. If we go ahead and deny it, then it can move up the chain instead of going back to the JCPC. I serve on the JCPC board, and I will say that it was a overwhelming majority of the board voted to deny his appeal. And this had went through the funding committee, the monitoring committee had been
But it was
involved.
based on, Chris, I don't
So
mean.
I'm
on
speaking.
false premises. Yes, sir.
So, we could run into that same situation. Let me ask you this,
Yes,
since
sir.
you want to speak. What other counties have withdrew their funding from your program?
When you talk about, let's talk about what other counties, Mecklenburg expanded our programming, the same ones that you denied.
What?
One is $152,000, the other.
What counties
got
have withdrew
Mecklenburg.
funding from your program?
Rowan County, going on appeal, because we have the same situation there.
I'll say that, I know we'll have to vote on that.
Oh,
unless you
I'm
want to
sorry, for the
withdraw
vocational
your-
program, I'm sorry, no other
unless you-
counties. We have no other counties
Unless you would like
for vocational.
withdraw your motion.
Well, let me ask you this.
Please do.
What if I withdraw my motion and Commissioner Meismer withdraws his second motion, and then we make a new motion to deny it? Would that satisfy you so you could move on up?
No.
Well, either way, it's not going to satisfy you either way. Am I right?
I think you send it back. I think you send it back. I'd rather go that route because I think once people hear that the information that they received through the monitoring process, the rest of the board were given that information and they took it as truth and it wasn't. And so that's what I'm saying. I'd rather it go back and then go through the process again. That would be my preference.
Motion stands.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioners, there is a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion?
You know, in light of realizing that this will come right back to our right back in front of us, I seconded your motion.
Yep.
But I'm actually going to vote against this because I would prefer us just to address it, send it on, because it's going to come back with the same result. And you know, there's been a lot of conversations about all of this, and we went through this. It was a different type of appeal, a different reason, but we went through an appeal last year. It was denied all the way through.
Okay.
And so,
May I make one more remark? I appealed three times in Mecklenburg County. It was upheld by the county manager 2 years in a row. So just because it was denied one time doesn't mean it won't be denied, that it will be denied the other time once there can be some discussion, some honest discussion based on the revelations that's happened here. This happened in Cabarrus County. And I'll be honest with you, the politics of the state, it's less likely that they're going to go against the county because they don't want to seem like they're making an imposition on there. That's been my experience. But an appeal is based on the merits of the appeal right now.
So let me make this.
That's my
This is not
opinion.
the only program that the JCPC works with. There are other programs, and I can't tell you the last time an appeal came from any of those. They're very gracious of what they get, excited to perform the services. And so, as I said, you had made the motion, I had seconded it. Now understanding that this is just going to come right back to us, I'm going to vote against that motion. And I would.
You know, Chris, this is sort of ironic, but I had that very thought this morning, just of thinking about a person making, seconding a motion and then voting. He's by seconding it, you're saying yes, and then when we vote, you say no. And I had that same thought this morning. It's sort of ironic, But I guess, Mr. Chairman, if Commissioner Meismer withdraws his second, do we solicit another second, or does the motion die?
Well, if he withdraws his second, and I'd have to call on our parliamentarian, who's the attorney exactly on that, but.
Well, his second only is to allow the motion to be voted on.
Right.
He's not saying necessarily that he's in favor of it.
Okay.
Most of the time, a second is in favor of the motion, but it doesn't mean that he has to vote for it.
Okay, well,
So
that's
he
good.
actually has the ability to do either one, if that's what he chooses.
But if he withdraws the second.
We'll need to find another. So I'm going to withdraw my second.
Okay, Commissioner Meismer has withdrawn his second to Commissioner Shue's motion. Is there anyone else that would, is there another second to that motion? Okay, so that motion fails for the lack of a second. And so the issue is still on the floor.
So I will move that we deny this appeal, and Mr. Bago can take further steps that he feels necessary to appeal at the state if he so chooses.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Further discussion. Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. That motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to item F3, which was formerly on our consent agenda, which was E12. And that is a presentation that we had at our work session regarding the facilities and design and construction, presentation of a guaranteed maximum price for the behavioral health building. And so Commissioner Meismer, you have the floor.
So the three items that I had pulled for more discussion, two of them, this one and the next one kind of go hand in hand. It goes back to the discussion that we had just had as far as the financing, and the LGC meeting where they did not approve us financing the ACN building. So I'm not sure how we can go under contract and spend monies for a facility that is being proposed to be built on the ACN property when we do not have ownership of that property.
I think this motion authorizes the county manager to execute the contract change order to the existing pre-construction contract. So we are already under contract.
I agree, but I think that we're going to have a discussion about what's next. So I think this was asked at the LGC meeting about what was Plan B, since the ACN building was not approved for financing. What is our Plan B? And so how does this affect, the next item is facility design and construction. So how can we vote for that when we don't even own the property that it's being proposed to be built on, constructed on? So I don't know. I don't know if county management wants to chime in on this or what, but how can we approve these items when we don't have the property?
First of all, the item is not property specific.
Well, we have discussed this for a year. I mean, it's been talked about it, that it's going to be built on the ACN property. So to say it's not specific now, we have discussed this for a year.
Well, then we have to identify another location. That's an option that's available for the board. As far as
so the design that they're going to design can just be plopped over on another piece of property?
There will be additional expense.
Yeah, so see, now we're in a mess. So that's why you don't go under contract before you own a property on that. So so what's our Plan B with the ACN building, since that was not approved, the financing was not approved?
Well, it hasn't been voted on yet.
The ACN property?
Correct.
What do you mean? Well, yeah, but they didn't approve. I mean, so you're going to go back and ask for financing again for the building, just as you did?
Those items are still on the table at the LGC.
Now, how much earnest money did we put down for the ACN building?
I think that we have got about, earnest money, $375,000.
$375, okay.
We've got various other costs that total on that project about $4.8 million.
We have $4.8 million tied up in the ACN property.
Between the design contracts that have already been approved, the earnest money, the feasibility study, the engineering, the soil borings, all of those things that have to be
So we have
completed.
$4.8 million tied up in a property that we can not purchase now.
Well, that's one of the, if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the requirements. Before you go before the LGC, you have to have these things in place to indicate that you can actually accomplish the project.
Right, and that is correct, and I understand that. However, approaching them for this financing the same way we had been doing and told that we shouldn't be doing it that way, we still did it. Now it could potentially cost us $4.8 million. Is that what you're saying?
Potentially, yes, and none of this information, to the best of my knowledge, has been shared with those board members.
So how come you guys didn't share it that day when you were before?
Because we were not allowed the opportunity to do that.
Okay. And so what's Plan B now then? I believe they asked you that, and you said there is no Plan B.
Plan B is to make sure that they do have all this information and they're aware of all the details and the facts and the figures.
And that will be in the hopes that they approve that we can
Well, we
actually get the
always-
financing on it.
Always hope that they will approve, yes.
And so, is this part of the discussion tomorrow with the LGC staff?
I feel sure it will be.
Okay. So, as I said, the reason I pulled these items is because I'm not sure that we should spend another penny until we figure out our finances. You know, we could move forward with signing these contracts, and, yeah, you say it's not site-specific, but clearly, things have been designed for that property, and, you know, how can we be moving forward with the property that we were not approved for financing? So that's the reason I pulled them, is because I don't feel like it's responsible for us to approve contracts, spend another penny until we figure out.
Well, I don't, and, you know, I may be corrected if I'm wrong, but I don't think these spend any funds. It just gives the authorization
to spend.
For that to
Or
occur.
To order, so that is authorizing to spend.
But before we continue on with this discussion, I would like to call a 15-minute break to give everybody an opportunity to stretch their legs, and then we'll come back and do all three of these issues.
Okay.
So we will start back at 9:13. Okay, it's 9:13. We will reconvene the meeting, take up where we left off, and we were on item F3. Commissioner Meismer, I think you were talking about that.
So before we took the break, I was asking about the ACN property, and since it had not been approved for financing through the LGC, but this board has been planning to build a behavioral health center on that property, and we still haven't figured out the financing piece of that building either. So I believe the way we had left it, I was asking about Plan B, about the ACN building, since that had not been financed, and I believe you guys were asked that at the LGC meeting. So what is Plan B? I don't know, if Mike, if that's you or Plan B?
Well, we're still having conversations with the LDC again tomorrow.
Okay.
To see, and then after that, then we'll come back to you as a board as to.
Okay. So is it your
on that conversation?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So is it your professional advice that we move forward with authorizing some spending, moving forward with contracts to build facilities on the properties that we don't own yet? Is that your advice to this board?
Well, I think right now, as Commissioner Moore said, you've already spent quite a bit of money in the design part.
Right.
Yeah, so the extension of time right now, I think the current owner is, in order for them to relocate or go to another location to their, is it not on? Sorry. They're asking for an additional $50,000 in earnest money. So that would be something that you consider. Do you want to pay that? If you don't, then they may come back and say, okay, we're just closing out. We can't. Or
So we put $375 as earnest money.
That's correct. Now that this, with the LGC, it has slowed the process down a bit. They're getting antsy, of course. They want to sell their building, and they don't want, either they want us to buy it, or they don't want to keep holding it up for somebody else to look at it. So that's what they're saying. So the $50,000 and the $375 are going towards the price. Come on up, Kelly. You've been talking with them, so.
Eventual close, but it is all non-refundable at this point. And we have a closing date of Friday that was the original closing date, so we will have to take action prior to that date, one way or another. To
Friday of last week or Friday
no,
of
this
week?
coming Friday.
Yeah, so that's what we need to make the decision, or you guys, if you want us to extend that or not. And if you don't, then that may compromise the purchase of the building, I guess, because they may, what exactly did they tell you?
I have not spoken with them directly. We've been going through the realtor, but their information back to us was they were willing to extend to August 16th with the $50,000. The $50,000 is simply for them. They have to sign a lease with another area in order to continue to move. If they sign that lease, the $50,000 is, I guess, a out clause for them that they can pay their way out of that lease. So that's what the $50,000 is for at this time.
So now, say we were to go along with that and put another $50,000 to the $375 that we've already put down. You go back to the LGC and they say no, or just inaction, we'll say. They either say no or take no action as they did this last time, then we're in it for more than we already
Correct.
are. So what is the plan to try to get the local government commission to agree for us to finance this building? So, I mean, surely you're not going to walk up there with the same plan that you just went up there with, because, you know, they didn't, there was no action on that. So
Yeah, well,
So to ask us to
hopefully
spend.
they'll allow us some input in there, which they didn't do much last time, so that we can defend the case. So
And you think that will persuade them?
I hope so, but I'm not sure, no.
Okay. Well, so this item, the three items I pulled off the consent, I feel as though, until we are figuring out our finances, it seems like we just keep getting a little ahead of ourselves, and we could be, getting ourselves digging the hole deeper. And I feel like until we figure out our finances, that, we shouldn't be, signing any more contract or, spending any more money on this. But
If I interpret these three items, I don't think any of these require us to sign any contracts. I'm looking at the CIP item now, which of course we discussed at the work session. I think that just authorizes the items that we had discussed. And I think that is true on the other two items as well.
So, yeah,
The second item is just talking about the approval of alternatives if they use different building materials.
Right, but we don't even own the property yet. So how can we even we're wasting our time by even having these discussions, with these, whenever potentially this won't even work out. I mean, we could even.
I think we approve these three items. If we need them, they're approved. If we don't, we don't use them.
Okay, well, in the third item that I had pulled off, is adding to the budget ordinances is what was passed in the budget. So, as I said, until we address the $86 million that the LGC has had issue with, we're not going to be able to receive funding on any of the new projects that we had passed in the budget. So I just feel like we should.
I think many times it's like one of those chicken and egg things. You go to the LGC and say, well, has your board approved these budget amendments? If you say that in many cases now, there may be other people more qualified to talk about their procedure, but in many cases you have to do A, B, C. Do you have that? Now that's one of the things that their retired former employee talked about, is having contracts in place before you go to the LGC. In our case, we've had estimates on the projects which have come within 4%, except for the one project that I mentioned earlier that the scope changed on.
Right.
So this merely authorizes that work for that to be in place. Then if it is approved, then you've completed those steps.
That was their point, is that we should have some of this information together before just going to ask for more money in a drawdown program. So, yes, really, what they were asking is that we should be getting this debt approved.
The
LGC.
Most of that was like one or two individuals.
Well, like I said, I've watched the meeting too. So, we can, so as, we can, they want us to have certain information before we go to them. I think, of course, their number one issue is that none of this debt has been approved by voters with a bond. But even going with them to do, say we wanted to finance the ACN building, just like you guys did. We went up there, wanted to finance the ACN building. That's right. We have to have some stuff in order and spend a little bit of money to decide whether or not we want that building. Now, of course, I voted against, even wanting the building, but I know that there has to be some due diligence done before you approach them and ask for the financing. But then this is where you got in the cart before the horse. You're going out and planning to build a behavioral health center on that property before we even own it. So now we're in a bigger mess of we didn't even own that property. And then, so before we could even get approval to purchase the building, then it's going out and planning the behavioral health center on a property that we don't even own. So,
Chris, and I think, I could be wrong, but my thoughts on that was because I think it was mentioned, maybe the county manager or Commissioner Morris said that we've been running our projects through LOBs, limited obligation bonds, and we haven't had any trouble with the LGC at all until all of a sudden this comes up. And so we, I think, made on an assumption that this would be, just like all the other projects were done, they would be approved by the LGC. And I think since we've sort of, and I will watch the video, I won't do it tonight because it's too late, but I will watch the video tomorrow to see, exactly what went on and what was said, this and that and all. But there's a lot of information that they do not have on our side. All they got is what they got, and I think that just like.
Why didn't we give them that information?
Well, from what I understand was we didn't have an opportunity to plead our case.
Staff has all the information.
We
I'm
didn't,
not sure
we
it was
didn't get a
passed
chance
on.
to plead our case, and are they aware, is the LGC aware that the state has granted $35 million to Cabarrus County for a behavioral health center? Are they aware of that?
Well, whenever.
And the other things that Commissioner Morris had mentioned earlier, are they aware that they have approved, and there are other counties that do what we're doing? That we're not the only one.
Well,
Are they aware of that?
Well, whenever Chairman Morris and county management's in front of this commission, that was their opportunity to plead their case.
If they wouldn't give you the opportunity, though, what do you do?
There was an opportunity to speak about it, to talk about it, to.
I don't know, did we get that opportunity?
No, we were.
A few questions.
No.
But
So,
anyway, like I said, this just goes back to the beginning that I feel that, we got to have some serious discussions about finance before we get into anything else. But that's my opinion. I think that the sale of the ACN building not going through, everybody presuming that it would just happen has really thrown a monkey wrench into it all. So.
But then again, we had no reason to doubt that they wouldn't, because they hadn't, they haven't.
As
given
I
us
said,
any
they had
trouble.
been given guidance for a couple of years, and now I don't know if some people didn't know about it, but they have been given guidance
Well, see,
saying,
that was
don't
total-
pursue this route, don't do this, clean this up, fix it a little, don't go down this route, and
Where
then
would that information have been sent to? And then the question would be.
they said
whoever
their
was-
staffs talked to our staffs, I don't know, but
Well, why
potentially,
haven't-
Mike
why
Downs should,
wouldn't- why wouldn't we have
can
heard
answer
about it?
this, maybe he'll
Well,
answer
they
this.
approved this draw program in May of 2022. That was a couple of years ago.
So, Mike, are you aware of some of these discussions?
I have
It's-
not. No. In fact, the gentleman that stood up and spoke no longer works for the LGC. I've not seen him. In fact, I've probably only seen him one other time in my life, but that's
So-
probably over 5 years ago.
So you're saying that we have had no communication from them saying that we need to clean things up with these bans, bans of debts that's been taken out?
I am not guessing. I am, the other day at the LGC, I don't think, Kelly, you haven't had any other conversations with him?
No, I haven't. That was the first I heard of it, and actually tonight is the first that I heard that piece of it put together, that they were upset about the courthouse in particular.
Well, it was discussed in that meeting about the courthouse was funded through two different bans. So that can't be the first time you're hearing about, because you
Well,
were
I
in
was-
that meeting.
I was looking through some information, trying to find some answers to questions as they were asking, but, yeah, I had not heard that before.
Well, they said it in that meeting, and you were sitting there, so.
Well, hopefully tomorrow our conversation will be a little bit more, there'll be
Yeah.
more time to ask questions of them and them of us.
Yeah. I feel like we need direction on a lot of this before we can move forward, so.
Okay, we've got 3 items here, and of course, we need to consider those individual. The first is formerly E12, is now F3. The requested action and the recommended motion on this is a motion to approve the GMP bid award and authorize the county manager to execute the contract change order to the existing pre-construction contract between Cabarrus County and Messer Construction subject to review by the county attorney. We can either approve that motion and authorize the county manager to present that for review to the county attorney based on the outcome of the activities of the next couple of weeks, or you could vote to table this to the work session like you did the other item, but that, once again, would require suspension of the rules to take action on it.
Or it can be tabled to our next general meeting. We could get an update at our work session, and then if we are okay with it, then we can vote on it at our general meeting, put it on consent agenda and go forward. But,
I just want to make sure
Yes.
you can tell us, what's the impact of waiting a month? Is there an impact?
Obviously, the groundbreaking will be later, depending on.
We can move that.
We've got a lot of
Any
balls in the
other-
air right now.
Any other financial requirements to do that?
No,
from
I mean,
Mesa?
we even if you were to approve it tonight, we could hold it until we know for sure that site would work. But I don't.
Because
I think Jason from Messer is on. He was earlier. We can confirm with him.
so, I mean, we could table this to the work session, but still at that point, we're not going to know whether we own the ACN property or not at that point. So
Whether we own it or whether we have the ability to move forward, I guess, through the LGC's approval.
Yeah, well, either one. I mean,
Sure.
that's the same. That's the same thing. So even if we table this to the work session, we're not going to know at that point whether we can put a behavioral health center on the ACN property or not. So my suggestion would be that we would table this until we have the clarification, we get through this at the work session, what we had discussed as far as the drawdown program, and then address this.
Is he on?
Jason's on. He just unmuted.
I'm here.
Are there any, if we do hold off
Yeah,
on
so
this?
Kelly, to your point, and I can chime in on that, just short term here for us would be we can't execute the subcontracts associated with the site steel or concrete for the project, which I understand all of what else is going on here. So a couple things for us. One, we're going to push up against bid requirement timeframes, which is 90 days. So if we exceed that, we're going to need to get permission from the subs to hold their bids in extension of past 90 days. So there's an opportunity that they would not, and we would need to rebid that section of the work. The other potential ramification is we won't be able to release a mill order of steel, which will delay going vertical in construction.
But all of that could be done, and then we still don't own the property to pursue this. So it's going right back to, we need to figure out whether we're going to end up owning the property or not, if we're going to be able to finance the property. There's.
Okay, I have not heard a motion on the floor, so at this time, I move to approve the GMP bid award and authorize the county manager to execute the contract change order to the pre-existing pre-construction contract between Cabarrus County and Messer Construction, subject to review by the county attorney. I think that gives us the permission that once we get these issues cleared up, they can go forward. If the issues are not cleared up, they won't go forward. And so do I hear a second to that motion?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'll open the floor for additional comments.
If this doesn't go forward and we approve this tonight, it just goes away.
Yeah, we don't do it.
But if it does get approved, it's already done.
We proceed forward.
But if they've already went out to bid for some of these items, what implications are we getting
I
ourselves into?
think that's in the previous things that have already been approved.
In what previous things?
So you said it's already been approved.
We've had a couple of other items on this, on some pre-purchase of steel. I think it was GMP 1 and GMP 2, two different items. So
if you go, I mean, if we vote for it, so we just gives them the permission to proceed forward until we get other news that we need to back off. So there's no harm, no foul.
that's my interpretation.
Okay.
Okay, other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
That passes 4-1. And we move now to item F4, formerly E13. That is facilities design and construction, and the requested action here is a motion to approve the preferred brand alternate list for equipment for the Cabarrus County Behavioral Health Care Facility, which, as we've discussed before, and I think we talked about at our work session, that's if they have
Like the fire alarm system, to be able to have them all
Door locks, all those nature.
the same as within the county.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
That motion passes 4-1. We move now to F5, formerly E14, which from finance is the capital improvement budget, CIP budget. And the summary on that one is the county CIP and PAYGO projects were approved as part of the budget process. The projects will be recorded and tracked in the county's capital project fund, Fund 380, and the school's capital project fund, Fund 390. These projects are being funded by a contribution from the general fund, community investment fund, and future financing. The budget amendment to record these projects, the project ordinances, and the project list are included with this agenda item, which you all have a list of those there. And so some of these projects are PAYGO projects that will come out of cash. Others are from debt proceeds, and that's all spelled out in
So my
this.
issue with these would be the debt-funded projects, obviously. You know, it was approved in the budget. We're not going to be able to get financing. I feel like we need to, as you know, I've said it several, it's been the theme of the evening that we got to get this figured out before we can, you know, even move forward on this, so.
Yeah, and I would say if we do not approve this, then we will hold up all of those other capital projects for which we are paying cash. If we approve this, that puts the items in place that we can do the items that have already been funded, and we don't have to do the ones that are not funded. So based on that, I would move to adopt the project ordinance for the county's capital project fund and the school's capital project fund, and approve the budget amendment. Is there a second to that motion? Did you second? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
That motion passes 4-1. That completes our items of new business. We move now to reports, and so at this time, we'll receive updates from commission members who serve as liaisons to municipalities or on various boards or committees. Does anyone have anything? Okay, hearing none, we will move to general comments by board members. Does anybody have anything? I do not think we have need of a closed session tonight, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to do a report on WASAC.
Okay, yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I wanted to show you some pictures of the Rocky River Waste Treatment Plant. There's a number of phases that we're accomplishing out there, and right now we're finishing up on Phase 3, and like I say, it's a multi-phase operation, and the project at the Rocky River Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant is nearing completion right now, and Phase 4 is going to be starting soon. And when completed, Phase 3 will bring the Rocky River wastewater treatment plant from 26.5 million gallons per day to 30 million gallons per day. And then whenever Phase 4 completes, it will take it to 34 million gallons per day. And, so I'm well pleased from being on the board for the water and sewer, that it's moving along, got good direction, and hope to get this all completed and open the doors for more development and for whatever that needs to take place in Cabarrus County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, any other general comments? And I think I misspoke on closed session. I think we do have one item of business for closed session.
Rich, you got this? No, we don't.
Okay, very good. Then at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I've got one question before we leave. So going back to the ACN, the closing date is Friday, and we never discussed whether there was going to be an additional 50,000 put down to hold it. So when will that decision be made? Is it?
If you guys,
So we can either just leave it out there and not make a decision to do that, and then Friday rolls around, and if the seller wants to terminate the contract, then we lose $375,000. Or we can approve the additional.
and the potential for the rest of them.
Well, yeah, all the other items.
Well,
that are
nobody bought it
included with
for
that.
8 years when it was on the market, so I doubt it's going anywhere. Okay, just curious, because it was discussed that Friday was closing date and so I didn't know who was making that decision. We weren't asked to make that decision, so.
I think we did. We wanted some directions. Do we want to?
Okay, so you got what you needed? That we don't want to put down an additional 50,000?
I didn't hear that.
Okay, so what direction did you receive from us?
That's what I'm saying. There was no direction.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking, when are we going to be asked? Because if the closing date's Friday and.
Ask right now, if that's what, that's what
Well, I
we
mean,
need.
what was your plan?
That was our plan. It was to try to get
We were
you-
just getting ready to adjourn the meeting without any decision, so that's what
I thought that was included in the last one that you just did, so.
It was?
Yeah, when
Okay.
we talked
Okay,
about
so you
that.
got the direction you needed then, if,
Yeah.
Are you sure?
You can go back and ask everybody if you want. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. We've already approved the CIP already.
Put down additional
This is the additional 50 to hold the.
Was that included in the CIP? I
No,
don't remember.
This is
Okay.
totally separate.
That's a whole separate issue, so.
I think it would be irresponsible of us to jeopardize the $375,000 in earnest money, the $4,880 in surveying, the $168,000 in engineering fees, plus the other contracts that we've already entered into until we get a definitive answer on this. So I would be in favor of advancing the $50,000 to move the closing date forward to what was the day? August the 16th? August the 16th. And we can, I can make that in the form of a motion.
And where will that which fund will that 50,000 come from?
That will come out of the funds in the CIP. Jim is already gone, I think.
Is he out there?
Yeah, yeah.
Kelly, you have it.
So I think that would be, Kelly.
So the 50,000 would be part of the 42 million, but,
Okay.
you know, we have.
Just be advanced.
We have some advanced funding, yeah, that we used on, obviously, other activities with it, so.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I'd rather lose 50 than 375. You know, because we're not gonna know till tomorrow. And here we are. It's gotta be done by Friday.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. That motion passes 4-1. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We stand adjourned. Thank you all for joining us.